Welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast with your host, Brett Bovin. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy the show.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Bovin. And if this is your first time tuning into the show, thank you. It's a fun show. We do a live show Monday through Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And each week we cover a new state. This week we're in Michigan, and we like to get a new guest each day of the week and figure out what they do best in that state, what makes them a good hunter, and figure out what are they doing to be successful. And we also like to learn what's happening in the law-wise out in that state and just kind of get a feel. It's nice to see what's kind of going on. As all you guys know, I am from Michigan, so with us covering Michigan this week, so I'm going to do my best to pretend like I don't know anything that's going on. The producer of the show is not here with us tonight. Like I said, he wasn't available for yesterday because it was birthday, so I texted him saying he was fired. So that's why he's not here with us tonight. So, yeah. No, I'm just kidding. He's not fired. He has work to do. But I do ask if, as the listener in the audience out there, if you can put your quarter in the slot machine. And what I mean by that is to help share the show. I strongly believe hunting is a dying sport, a dying lifestyle. And we need your help out there to share the show, to get the word out about hunting. It's an amazing sport. It's an amazing lifestyle. It's a great way to get family and friends around and just have an amazing time. So with that being said, though, we are a part of the pro staff with Gilly Puck. If you use the code GP10, GP10, you get 10% discount off the products. And with that being said, I like to run a quick little ad for them. Go ahead and check them out. Use code GP10, GP10, and get 10% discount on the products. And I'm a huge advocate for MAGNUS broadheads. I love their brand. I love their broadheads. It's a solid broadhead, so make sure you go check them out. But enough of my normal spiel and this and that. Let's get into tonight's guest. He's from Michigan here. Let's give a round of applause for Jesse. What's up, brother?
How you doing, man?
Good. How about you?
Not too bad. Finishing up a long day at work here, but glad to be on here with you.
Thanks for taking the time to come on the show, man.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Michigander, I can't miss that.
Right. For everyone that doesn't know you, can you give a little background about yourself, brother?
Yeah, man. So the main thing is people most likely will probably know me from Grizz Media, a media and marketing agency that I started in 2018, so a little over 6 years ago. It's kind of a thing that I was slowly growing into from tournament bass fishing. And I was doing that for a living pretty much through 16 years old, all the way till 22-ish. I dropped out of college to pursue it, started this media company just from chain reactions of events, and moved back to Michigan, where I was down in Missouri for a while, started Grizz Media, and it became just a big media agency where we do a little bit of everything, photography, videography, graphic design, brand development, social media management, marketing, pretty much anything marketing and media content creation. And then recently we started Grizz Hunt, which is kind of like a sidestep, a child company of Grizz Media. And it's basically our team's projects, hunts, content, everything that we do behind the scenes. So even though we create content for all these big businesses and brands, we still are hunters. That's what we do. We prefer to have the gun or bow in our hand over a camera still. So all the other hunts that we do, all the shed hunting, turkey hunting, whatever it is, archery, we post everything there. So it's kind of like we're creating content media for other brands, but then we're also using those skills that we have to push towards Grizz Hunt, where it's our hunts, our projects, the things that we want to do. We don't get to invest as much time into it as we'd like with bigger brands, just for budget reasons and time reasons. We prefer to put all of our time into our clients and the brands we work with over ourselves, but hopefully we can kind of switch over and do a little bit more of each, where we can kind of pursue more of the things that we want to do as well. But other than that, it's a basic run of what I do and who I am.
How long have you been doing this now?
So Grizz Media was founded in 2018. So it's about 6 years, but I've been doing this type of work for maybe 10 years when I first kind of picked up a camera and started figuring it out. I was a tournament bass angler. I was fishing on the tour, fishing as many tournaments as I could. And I started to get sponsors, and I had brands reaching out to me like, hey, we want you to create this video, these photos. And at the time I couldn't afford a camera guy. I didn't know what I was doing. So I just purchased a cheap camera kit. I think it was like the Canon Rebel something, and just kind of started from there, taking photos and videos. And then I also had camping brands and hunting brands reach out to me saying, hey, we want this. I'm like, man, this seems like a good little gig. I can make some side cash while tournament fishing. And then I kind of just got burnt out of the tournaments, and not because I didn't enjoy fishing anymore. That's one of my biggest passions. It has been since I was 4 years old when my dad taught me. But I just got so burnt out of like the need to win a tournament, to keep paying bills and to strive and to feel like I'm like, okay. I had bills coming up to pay for the apartments, the car, the boat, or whatever I had. And I'm like, man, I got to win a tournament. I got to get these sponsors happy. I don't want to disappoint them. I had to just keep doing it. And that just kind of burnt me out of the fun of just fishing. And I enjoyed the competitiveness of tournament fishing, but I didn't want to rely on the tournaments. So when I had brands and companies reaching out to me for content and marketing for them, I kind of felt like I had a good little niche in that. I was starting to do well in it. It felt natural. I had brands reaching out to me like, hey, you're just good at talking in front of a camera about this product, and then you also pretty good at the camera. Like, can we just do some stuff on the side? So I kind of just transitioned to that, and I was able to pick up hunting again because I had a little more freedom, a little more free time. Tournament season's like 9-10 months out of the year. So I was able to pick up a bow again and get back to archery and hunting. And then I think I realized that hunting was just like my main purpose. It just felt more right. It was harder. It was more of a challenge. There was more to learn into it. And not discrediting bass fishing at all, especially tournament fishing. It's so intricate, but I really felt like it was more physically difficult. And I've just always been big into the grind and the physical part of it. And yeah, it was awesome going out and catching 10, 15, 20 nice bass, but spending 9 months out of the year prepping, scouting, setting cameras and everything to shoot one possible big deer or whatever it is, just it felt more rewarding. You put so much into it and you get this one animal, everything kind of comes into it. So hunting felt right to me. And now primarily we do hunting media and Grizz media, but I mean, we still work with fishing brands and stuff and spear fishing and camping, hiking. So now we've kind of spread all over, but hunting's just kind of been my thing. And I still love to fish, and I will never pass up a day to fish. It's still probably 50-50 with hunting. It's just hunting, there's more there for me. And I just kind of put all my eggs in one basket with the hunting thing for the last few years, and it's paid off. I'm slowly starting to try to get back into some more fishing stuff just to kind of wean things out. And, you have slow seasons in hunting. The last 2-3 years have been just insane with hunting trips and traveling. And now this year I'm kind of taking a year off a little bit from the huge trips to kind of get back into the other things I enjoy too, and to have fun and just kind of pace myself. And that's kind of why I'm getting a little bit more back into the fishing as well.
Yeah, I saw that you were out in Africa doing some hunts out there.
Yeah. So I generally go every year, and it's usually 3 to 4 weeks at a time. So we usually go for big spans, or one that's just to do as much content as we can at once, but also because I hate that flight every time. Like 18-20 hours there and then back. I'm like, I hate it. I can't sit still very long, and I just cannot do that 2-3 times a year. So I'd rather just go one long time, get it all done, and come back.
Right. Let's touch into your fishing experience right there. Since you're in the tournaments, what kind of goes into a tournament like schedule? Like, what's it like doing it from day in and day out? How much work are you really doing in that? What's it like, the schedule like?
Well, man, I mean, it was like I was doing probably 2 tournaments a month, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're prepping for the tournament weeks in advance, scouting the lakes, prepping, and then you're actually going to the tournament days ahead, and you're pre-fishing, packing up, and then you're moving all the way from maybe Tennessee back to Michigan, and then you're driving all the way back there, and you got to prep for that one. So it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of tournaments in one time. Like 2 a month doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're actually like, you got to plan it, you got to prep it, and then you got to talk to the brands of letting them know what you're going to fish, what brands you're going to possibly use for that event, what products you're going to use event. And then a lot of the brands, like I said before, I didn't have a camera guy, so I had to capture that too. So not just the tournament, I would have to go spend 3-4 days on that lake capturing content using these items, generally during pre-fishing. But I also didn't want to waste a whole lot of time pre-fishing, because it's kind of like a practice to just get photos and videos for clients. So I would kind of space out even more time for that. So for a 3-day tournament, I was usually spacing out a 10-day span for that 3 days. So if you imagine 2 tournaments a year plus travel, it was like 20 to 24 days that I was investing into each tournament every month. So it ended up being a lot. Yeah, I mean, I know there's guys that are out there that do it differently, that can have a camera guy come with them. One of my friends, Brandon Polinick, fishes on the tour, and he's got a camera guy with him full time. He's got his trailer, his wife and kid come with him in his trailer, and it allows him to kind of have more freedom with that. Obviously, it took him a long time to get there and a lot of success. But with me, I was still in college and still doing classes and working a job as well as tournaments. It was just a lot at once. So I kind of made the decision to just drop out of college. It's not really what I felt was right for me. I obviously didn't enjoy it. I don't think many people do, but I didn't have a plan with it either. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it. If it fails, I'm going to keep doing it until something else succeeds. I wasn't going to let it fail completely. So I dropped out, and it was honestly the best decision of my life, was dropping out and just pursuing it and just throwing everything I had at it until, something would stick. And the tournaments were doing well for a while, and I was winning some here and there, and we were doing really well, but it was mostly the recognition that I got from the work I was putting into everything is what got me to the opportunities that I'm in now. It wasn't because I was the best tournament angler or winning all these tournaments. I had some good streaks here and there, but it was mostly just like the amount of work I was putting in with these brands and sponsors. They were noticing it, and they're like, hey, well, we want you to do more of this and that. And that's what led me into kind of doing more photos and video and getting paychecks that way. It felt less stressful. I could spend a 3-day fishing trip, catch a fish, get some photos of it with the products, whatever I'm using, talk about it, and then maybe take 1 day just for content and then just enjoy the fishing. And I was consistently earning money from that instead of having to invest these huge budgets to travel here for these tournaments, the entry fees, maybe not having a sponsor pay for that entry or helping you out. And then if you lose, you're in the negative. So it just seemed to make more sense for me to kind of just quit doing the tournament thing specifically, even though I enjoyed it, and just kind of invest into something more consistent. And that's where it kind of led in me doing some hunting stuff and then camping, hiking. I had all kinds of brands reaching out to me, skateboard brands, longboard brands, anything that I enjoy to do. I had brands reaching out to me, and it allowed me to kind of just do my life stuff, the things I just enjoy, and be able to make it into a business. So even now I have brands that are like longboards, and I love to longboard, and I get people reaching out to me for content for that, or spear fishing, hunting, fishing, camping, anything that we do. I've even done stuff just with my dog that brands have reached out, and I'm like, it's already part of my lifestyle, so let's just do it and it'll work out well. So it just kind of all flowed into that. But fishing is still a huge part of my life. It's always going to hold a good spot in my heart. My dad taught me when I was about 4 years old, and we fished. That's all we ever did. Every vacation, it was based off fishing. And it's just something that I've always been obsessed with. And I used to get made fun of it in high school, to be honest with you. That's all I ever did. Senior skit day, I bailed to go fishing. And the first prom, I bailed to go fishing. I didn't do these events because that's all I did. And I even quit a lot of high school sports to just fish and put everything I wanted into what I knew was going to be a goal of mine, like a career. I said, all this other stuff is it's distractions for me. So I just kind of threw everything at it until it worked out, and it did temporarily until I realized now I want to switch gears and do something else. So it just kind of bounced all over to kind of lead to where I am now.
I did want to ask, because I know in the golf world, so you have they start their tournaments on Thursday, and then they make their cuts after Friday. And if they don't make the cut, they basically are out X amount of money. So they don't profit anything. So they're basically screwed.
Yeah, in the negative. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that similar to the fishing tournaments? Like if you're not in like the top 10 or something like that?
Yeah, 100%. There's qualifications, and I wasn't really fishing the big enough tours where it was like that. I wasn't ever fishing for the Bassmaster Classics, but I was like fishing any big tournament that I could afford or get my hands into. I was even fishing tons of local ones just to kind of build up my resume. It's like, hey, I've won these and this and that, and then I'm going to go do this. And not just for the tournaments itself, but to represent these brands of what I've done and what I'm trying to do. And it just kind of built up this small resume. But yeah, 100%. It's the same way. I mean, it's a good example that you mentioned that. It's a lot like golf tournaments or anything. I mean, you have to succeed in a certain amount of tournaments. Let's say if it's a 12 tournament season, the first 8, you're probably going to have to qualify in the top 50 just to finish or fish the last 4 of them. And then obviously, if you're in the big leagues, like we're the Bassmaster Series, that you're going to have to, do the opens first just to get into the Bassmaster Series. And then you're going to have to qualify for the Classic. And if you don't get that, then you're kind of out for the year. So it's a lot like golf for sure. It's a good example. And that just put a lot of stress on not just the fishing for me, but everything. Everything was just relying on that. So yeah, I definitely got burnt out of it. I still love it, and I would still love to fish in tournaments here and there. I didn't want my whole life to be dependent on that for sure.
Right. Well, obviously making that decision would turn out in a positive way for you. Did you ever get to a point when you were making that transition of that decision? Did you ever at one point second guess yourself, like, is this going to be the right decision? Or were you just knew it right away?
Of like quitting the tournaments?
Yeah, and starting your company here.
Almost every day. Yeah, I had a lot of sleepless nights. So basically, when I was fishing tournaments, I dropped out of college and I moved across the country. I moved from Michigan to Missouri, and I was completely on my own. No friends, no family, didn't really know anybody. I had never even been to Missouri before this, and I just kind of put everything there, and it was a huge jump just to do that. And then less than a year later, I was kind of ending the fishing tournament series. And when I stopped, I had nothing. I was in Missouri by myself. I quit the tournaments. I was in this house by myself. I had this boat, this truck, all this stuff. And I'm like, well, now I got to pay for this stuff. What am I going to do? And that's where I just, almost the day after I decided I was going to quit tournaments, I just threw everything I could into doing this kind of work, this marketing business thing. And I had a job down there doing marketing and media stuff like that as well. And I learned a lot of it then. And that's when I was fishing tournaments as well as when I was doing the media work down there. So I kind of had some experience from that. And I got hired for that job from managing some social media pages for fishing pages and taking photos here and there. And they're just like, all right, we think you have enough to get this job. So I had something when I was there. And then when I quit tournament fishing, I was like, all right, well, now I'm doing this media thing, but I didn't think I didn't want to be in Missouri all the way over there, knowing nobody, really having nothing there other than, all the money I was making from this work I was doing was pretty much basically making me afford to stay there just to work for that job. And I'm like, why am I all the way over here? I wasn't really happy being there. I made one friend while I was there, but I'm like, everything I'm earning is just to keep me in this place to work for this job. And it didn't seem like it was going to go anywhere. So I picked up some skills from it, got some knowledge and experience from it. And then I said, I'm just going to do this my own way. I'm going to do it myself. So I packed up all my stuff and sold my boat. Unfortunately, I wish I didn't, but I couldn't bring back a trailer of stuff, a boat, a truck, and all this other stuff. I'm like, worst case scenario, I'll buy another one when I move back. So sold it, sold a bunch of stuff, got rid of a bunch of stuff, moved all the way back to Michigan and just said, this is what I'm going to do. So basically I was doing photos, videos, and a lot of just graphic design just to make, cash here and there until I was able to pick things up. And I didn't really get taught most of the stuff. I kind of had to learn everything on my own. And then the biggest jump in my career was probably about a year into doing the media stuff on my own as Grizz Media, but it was very minor. It was mostly me freelancing just as my name, but I was growing the name Grizz Media in the background. I was learning how to do a website build. I was learning how to do logo design. I was learning how to market this business. But at the time, it was just like my name as a freelancer, like, hey, I'm up to hire. If you need me for something, I'll do it. I didn't even have an LLC for it yet for the business. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of learning it as I went. I actually had the Pursuit channel reach out to me from a photo I did. They saw one photo, basically. Mark Peterson, who I'm sure you know the name, he has the show Triple Threat and Expedition series, and he's based out of Western Michigan as well. Huge name, huge hunter, really successful hunter. Actually became kind of like a mentor of mine, but he just saw a single photo of mine on social of a canoe hunt that I did. We did a 7-day canoe hunt on the river on, I believe it was the Muskegon River in Harrison area, Harrison County. And we packed no food, no water. Like, we'll filter the water. We have these little lifesaver bottles. We'll boil it. We'll do whatever we got to do. And we will hunt and kill whatever we need to eat food. So for 7 days, we did that. And we got miserable rain for like 6 out of the 7 days and snow and ice. And it was brutal. But at the end of it, we got some pretty cool photos out of it and video, even though we lost a lot. We ended up shooting like a turkey, a squirrel, and just anything we could get our hands on. And they saw one photo from that hunt, and it was just me paddling down the river. It was like mid-September, so beautiful colored leaves. And you could just tell that we practically went through hell on the 7 days. Like, we were wet, the misery on my face. I was just like in the miserable spot at the time, and we're canoeing down this river. The bow's in the front. We had the big grizzly cooler sitting in the front, and we're just paddling in this. It looked like a really cool photo. I mean, you could feel everything that happened in that week in that photo, just from like the expression of my face and the environment. And he contacted, actually, it was a mapping company based out of Michigan, HuntWise. And he pretty much went, hey, who is this guy? Who's Jesse? I want to contact him. And I did a couple photos for that brand a couple times, and he actually owned it at the time. So he contacted HuntWise. They contacted me and said, hey, Mark Peterson with Pursuit Channel is looking to get in contact with you. The next day, I'm on the phone with the guy. Didn't even know who he was. And I'm Googling him as I'm on the phone with him. I'm like, oh, man. Like, I could feel like my heart sink because I'm like, this guy's legit. And I'm like, don't know what I'm doing. And basically, they hired me to film 2 TV shows and produce it within the next few months, and kind of threw me into the deep end. You know, I knew photos, but I didn't really know video, and I was still mediocre at photos. I wasn't great at operating the camera. I didn't know what I was doing. I just had like an eye for photos to like tell a story. And that's basically what he hired me for. And then he's just like, all right, you're going to film for the show, produce it, and we're going to do books and TV and YouTube. And I was so nervous about it. And I was like, you know what? If I fail, I fail, but at least I tried it. And I got thrown in the deep end. And that's how I learned really, really quickly. Like, I didn't know how to film it at all, because basically we were just doing photos and just like vlog style video, anything we could get. And I wasn't even editing at the time either. It was very minimum. So I got thrown in the deep end on that, and it paid off. It opened up doors for me. Bass Pro Cabela's was reaching out to me using all my content. I was almost all the content that I was capturing was being used for like every sponsored ads and videos and books. And then we filmed the first ever upland slam and waterfall slam in 2 years, one for each year. And it was the first time it's ever been documented and succeeded in a single season. So it was just insane. I also had no experience with duck hunting or upland. I did a couple times here and there, but I didn't know anything about them. So I got thrown into there too, where I'm like, I don't know what these ducks are. I don't know what I'm doing. And I just kind of learned and asked questions. And Mark kind of took me under his wing as like, hey, I'm going to teach you. We're going to show you how this works. And he was a very good dude to me. He wasn't ever like strict or mean. Great guy to work with, had a lot of good times. And we were in some crazy situations, like from everything from earthquakes to being charged by grizzly bears, from almost falling off volcanoes in Hawaii. Like, it was just insane stuff happened. And I went from just doing logos and photos of archery and bow hunting in my backyard to filming all over the world, flying in these private jets, filming all this stuff. And I was just it never really hit me until I was done. Once I was done filming and all that projects, I was like, whoa, I did that. But it was so nonstop for 2 years. It was just every other day. It was like, all right, pack up. You got one day at home, pack up. We're going on another trip to Alaska. Now we're going to Hawaii, Oklahoma, Oregon. We were everywhere. So I got to experience the world very, very quickly. I got to experience the ups and downs of hunting, and I got to learn a lot. I got to learn about the tagging system, which I didn't know about at that point either, of like how to apply for points and drawings. And I didn't know what I was doing there. I was just buying anything over the counter. And Mark Peterson, who owns WTA, Worldwide Trophy Adventures, he had a hookup for that. So he was able to teach me a lot of that. And that kind of led me into finally getting to do my own stuff, where I was able to apply for tags and learn and understand. And all that experience and knowledge I gained from him and filming, I was able to really build my business into something much bigger, from somebody having no experience to a lot very, very quickly. And once that kind of grew up to Grizz Media was able to be sustainable on its own, I was able to kind of start doing my own hunts. So for the last 2-ish years, it's basically been me and the team filming a lot of my own hunts. We did a Texas hunt for Audad that was completely of our own. These last Africa hunts have been just on our own, of my hunts. And even one of our team members, Andrew, got to come and shoot a zebra. It was third day in Africa he's ever been there. First time he got to shoot his dream animal, a zebra. And it just all happened so fast. And I don't think it's really still hit me of how fast everything was happening. But I'm not really a stop and smell the roses kind of person. I'm always a what's next. So I still don't think it's really hit me of how fast paced it's been. But the last year, I've really kind of realized I need to slow down, pace myself, and learn from my mistakes and figure out what I need to do in the future and spend more time on everything behind the scenes. Like as of now, I'm almost 2 years behind in video edits of all my hunts. I post short little segments of Instagram reels here and there, but I'm like 2 years of footage behind like full YouTube videos and stuff. So I got a lot of catching up to do, and that's kind of why I'm taking this year off from a lot of big hunts. I got, your basic whitetail. I got several whitetail hunts, blacktail hunt, possible elk, bear hunt, and then even a special one possibly in Europe here this year. But other than that, I'm really taking it slow this year to kind of just get back to home base and kind of rebuild it. I kind of burnt myself out the last couple of years, just nonstop, working 7 days a week. I still live up in northern Michigan with no family, no friends up here. So it's basically just me every day, 7 days a week, working to build this from morning till dark. It's all day, but I have a goal and I know how to do it. I just need to dig my feet into the ground and make it happen. So it's a lot of work, but it's been a fun ride, and I definitely need to just keep at it. I can't slow down or I won't reach what I want.
I think with a winner's mentality, I think they always have to have that. You're always behind. You're always failing in some way, or I don't want to say failing, but you're always feeling like you're trying to play catch up. You're always trying to do what's next, what's better, and stuff like that. I think if you have that type of mindset, then you're just constantly just going to keep winning, and you're never happy with success. And like I've said before, I hate to lose more than I like to win, because those losses stand with me for months, years. Then those wins, they last for like a couple seconds, then I forget about it.
Exactly. It's a blessing, but also a curse. And you got to find the good parts of it and the bad parts. If I'm not progressing a little bit more every day, I feel like I'm drowning. And I've never really been a person to be like, oh, I did that. I'm proud of myself. I don't think I've once ever been proud of myself. I still don't think I am. And it kind of bothers me every time I hear somebody saying like, oh, that's so cool you did that. I'm proud of you or whatever. And, part of it's like, yeah, thank you. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm nowhere near where I want to be. And I still feel like I'm this far away from that goal. So I'm like, ignore that. That's nothing. I got to get here. And it's like a curse. I mean, it's a blessing because it can push you and motivate you, but it's also a curse. And it almost feels like you're never going to reach it. You're never feeling happy about it. So I don't know, there's goods and bads about it, but exactly what you're saying. I mean, it can help you in a lot of ways, but also it can be very difficult in wearing onto your mind and your body.
Oh, I know. I mean, I have my mindset here with my page, Whitetail Advantage. I get like 3.5 hours sleep a night, and I got 2 kids, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. I got my regular day job, and then I'm doing this, and I don't. My mind just never shuts off. I just feel like, what can I do better? How can I fix this? What can I do next? How can I improve it something in a different way? And I'll just sit there in bed just thinking. My mind it just never shuts off. And that's why I love to hunt, because it gets me a chance to sit out in the woods and just kind of just relax and just take a deep breath and enjoy where I'm at. But at the same time, it lasts for like 5 seconds and my mind gets back to going back to work.
Yeah. You get a few minutes of staring at the trees and the squirrels and listening to all the sounds, and it can be quiet. But places like Michigan, it's hard to relax because it's generally 30 degrees, 20-mile-an-hour wind chills, and you're trying to relax, and you're over there like freezing. And, you know, up where we're at, we hardly even see big deer. So that's stressful and makes you angry. So as much as hunting is super calm and peaceful, and it kind of brings me back to a zero, at the same time, it brings me over 100 at the same time, because I get so stressed about like, man, I'm putting all this work and I need to kill this deer. And, you know, I haven't killed anything this year. Or you have that such like ambitious, motivated, and driven like goal to kill something bigger every year and kill more and succeed more and have more achievement, that it's like, sometimes I just want to enjoy the hunt. And it's kind of hard to do that, especially like I've learned in the media side of things like we do. I get to enjoy the hunt a little bit less. I get more stressed because I'm like, hey, we got this hunt we got to go do. Obviously, I want to go kill this big black-tailed deer in Oregon in the mountains. But then I also got to worry about, I got to get this amount of photos. I got to get out this amount of video. And I want to make sure I make the clients happy, because that's what's paying my bills. So do I want to kill this animal? Yes. But do I also want to make this successful for the brands that I'm with and make them happy? Yes. So there's so much into it other than just going on your own. And I have it a lot of times where like, I just want to do this hunt. No camera guys, nothing. And I'll do that a lot. Like in Michigan, like basically all my Michigan hunts is just me. No camera guys. I don't film it. I don't even bring cameras with me half the time. If I kill something, I'll go get it and go get photos of the animal. But it's basically on my own, just to do my own thing. Because I generally know I'm not going to be shooting 150s, 160s in Michigan, where clients are going to be interested anyway. So I'm like trying to like leverage that, where I'm like, all right, well, Michigan's kind of a me thing. But if I travel all the way to Africa to go shoot this big kudu and I'm there for 30 days, like I need to get something out of this. I can't go invest 10 grand into this hunt and just do it for myself, or I wouldn't be able to keep doing it. So learning how to kind of pace myself with that has been super beneficial. Same thing with fishing. Like there was some days where I would just not pick up a camera, not bring any specific products, just go out and fish. And then I would come back another day and do it with the cameras and videos. But exactly like I was saying, like you got to learn to kind of pace yourself in ways where you're not going to burn yourself out. Because I've been afraid of burning myself out of the hunting side, just like I did in the fishing industry, and losing the fun out of it and the enjoyment of the real feeling that gave me like this adrenaline feeling that I wanted when I was just getting into hunting. Like it was so much different than fishing. There was like you could possibly die doing this, and it's much more miserable, but there's much more benefit from it in my eyes. I saw more to come from it. And if you don't realize how to like pace yourself, you're just going to burn yourself out of that as well. So I had to find like good middle grounds in everything that I do.
I noticed when I was working in law enforcement, I would go there. I remember one time specifically, I worked a total of 99 hours. So I was working doubles on my 2 days off for each week. And I was doing that kind of on a regular basis. I was young. I was just done off FTO. I was like, all right, I want to get as much overtime, bank up a bunch of money and stuff like that. Next thing I know, I'm crashing in my bed. My body's just torn out. So I eventually just got to say, I just got to take a deep breath and kind of regroup and get back to myself, because you get burnt out. And eventually I did get burnt out. It lasted for 7 years. Mm-hmm. And it's working in that type of line of field. It's stressful, but I say that only because the point that you're making is you got to learn what grounds you, and hunting is one thing that definitely grounded me. And I'm so thankful for my dad to show me hunting. And one question I do want to ask is, here in Michigan, we get 2 buck tags. Have you ever, you smirked there. What is that?
I don't like the 2 buck tag rule.
That's another question I was going to ask too. I have that same thought process. But for right now, we have 2 buck tags. We'll get into that moment here in a second. Have you ever caught yourself where you see your first deer and you get like your heart just beating on your chest, and it's nothing like big or fancy, and then you get that deer, and then you're ready for your next buck here in Michigan, and you see a bigger deer and you don't stress out as much because you've already got that one?
Yeah, I definitely know what you're saying. Especially for me, like with the media side, like, oh, if I shoot one and I fill that tag and I got all the content I needed, the next one is like just me, like I can enjoy it. So I'm a little less stressed, because not just stressed of making sure I kill the animal, efficiently and quickly and ethically, but also like I don't have to worry about getting all this content and video or whatever or film out of them. Like I can just enjoy it. So I've done that exact situation where I've gone on a hunt and killed a small animal, or whatever you want to call it, a less desired animal. And then I was super nervous about it, and come back and shoot one that's like a trophy animal. And I was just like a little less, excited about it, I guess, in a sense of I didn't feel as stressed in a way. It's a little different than what you're explaining, but I know exactly what you mean by that, because in different situations, I've been through the same thing. And that's one nice things about the Michigan buck rule with the 2 of them, because I'll shoot one and then I'm like, all right, the rest of the year I can just take my time. I don't have to stress about it. I don't have to worry about filling that tag. I can just kind of relax. And then if I see a really big buck, I can wait for that buck. I don't have to just shoot the first one that walks in front of me. So it kind of, it paces you once that happens. Like a lot of guys will go out and shoot opening day, first decent buck they see, and then they will wait for their target buck the rest of the year. They'll fill their freezer, they'll get a buck, get that itch out of them that they've been waiting 9 months for, and then they can just settle. So I get that part of it. I think it's beneficial to the person that way. But for our genetics, our populations, our hunting control, I think it's not beneficial. So there's perks of it, but I still think we need to take some years off from the 2 buck rule. I mean, we should be learning from the other states who have done it and seen the benefits of it. Seems like we haven't figured that out yet. The DNR kind of has their head in the closet and not really looking at what's going on. Not even just with the buck rule, with many other things that we could rant about all day. But yeah, I know what you're saying with the explanation that you had, for sure.
It's like you get that monkey off your back and it's like, all right, you kind of, your shoulders relax. All right.
Yep.
I feel that now. But the 1 buck rule, I would love to see that changed. I have a buddy, we had him on the show. He's in Illinois, and they have a 1 buck rule. And you could obviously, Illinois, the reputation there as well. They have giant bucks, and he made a good comparison, or a good, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but he said, and he was from Michigan, 2-year-old deer bucks here in Michigan act like a 6-year-old deer. 5-year-old deer out there in Illinois will act their age, basically.
Yeah. I can't believe that people haven't learned from it from the last 100 years of Michigan hunting, but we are bordered with some of the best deer hunting genetics and populations of anywhere in the country. I mean, we're right there with Illinois and Ohio, which have mega deer. We have Wisconsin, which is just across the pond next to us, that has the biggest deer in the world, basically the best deer hunting state, which is right next to Iowa. This little area has some of the best genetics, best hunting, best populations, anything you can think of right there. And then Michigan, some of the worst genetics, some of the worst management, some of the worst deer populations there. And we just haven't learned. Like, we could be one of these other states if we managed it right. And we have the benefits of all the state land that we have. We have some of the most state land in the country. We have the most state parks than anywhere else in the country. Yet we have some of the worst deer hunting in the country. Obviously, other than like Hawaii, where they don't have them, or like California or something. But for our area, it makes no sense that this little region has some of the best hunting in the country, and then we're right in the middle of that, and it has some of the worst. That's not because the deer aren't seeming to walk up there. That is because of the management and the rules that we have in place has just completely crushed our hunting. And I think they really need to do something here immediately. I mean, just the deer population in general is getting out of hand. I mean, just like the amount of car accidents from deer alone every year, it's just skyrocketing. And then you look at just like the ratio of deer that we have, the genetics that we have are terrible. It's so many things that show how bad that our management is. And it seems like the DNR just doesn't care. Our state doesn't care for it. They just kind of shove their head in the closet. They don't look at it. Let's just keep letting it go. Let's let it go how it works. But they don't realize, like, if nothing is changing, it only seems to get worse. We need to do something to change it. We've had the same rules for the last 40, 50 years that haven't changed anything. And then we also make it worse every year. You know, we quit using bait. We quit using deer attractants. We can't do anything here. And I know your area is very similar to mine, and we can at least rifle hunt up here. But if anything, I think that makes it worse. So there's just so many things that Michigan needs to figure it out. And anybody that's watching this that's from Michigan understands this. You know, I posted a video the other day of just like 2 different sheds that I found. They were both 4-point sheds. One was like maybe a 50-inch side, very typical shed that you're going to find here. A good buck in Michigan is 100 inches to 120 inches. It's like a good buck. Most people are going to shoot that. And it was an 8-point. And then I found one in Pennsylvania that was a 4-point, just a state, just a little bit lower than us. And it was maybe like a 80-inch side. And they're the same age deer. They're both 3-year-old deer. And it just shows the difference in not just the genetics, but the management in these states. It's unbelievable difference. I've hunted in Ohio, Wisconsin. I've hunted in Illinois, Pennsylvania, and they all have dramatically better hunting, better management, better populations. There's been times where I've almost not even cared to hunt in Michigan the last couple of years because of it. And then we also have the 3rd highest deer population in the country under Texas and Pennsylvania. We were 2nd, and now we're 3rd because of Pennsylvania has been exploding. So maybe they'll end up, you know, changing their stuff here with how much they're growing. But I just can't believe that the DNR just keeps everything the same. They don't seem to change anything up. We're just kind of, let's roll with it. And we really need to make some big differences here because it's only getting worse.
Exactly. And I think what I would like to see would possibly be, and now do I see this actually happening? No, because it's like ingrained in every Michigan hunter there is, changing November 15th opening day for gun season, of pushing that back.
Pushing it back a week or two?
Yeah. That will never happen. It just won't. But
I would love to see it rifle season December 1st to January 1st. Boom.
Yeah.
Just do it late season. You know, most of those, it might wean out some people. And even with bow season, I mean, you're going to have a lot of people complaining because down by you don't really have rifle season. You guys now are allowed to use 450 Bushmaster, which is basically a rifle that shoots a little bit slower and not as far. But up by us, we can pretty much use whatever we want up here. But the problem is it's much more dense up here. We don't have cornfields. We don't have bean fields. So if you're using a rifle, it's going to be a 40-yard shot anyway. So you don't really need it here. And then down by you could use it down by you, and then you can't. So it's like, it just doesn't really work properly. And I think that, you know, like you're saying, the rifle season should be pushed back a little bit farther, give the bow hunters a little bit more of a chance early season. And then obviously we could go on to days of talking about the bow and the crossbow rule and all that stuff. And I see a lot of benefits of it. And some guys that I know who are big bow hunters and they're using crossbows that are shooting 120 yards away. And I'm like, I have nothing against crossbow, but that I feel like should almost be set into a different season itself. Maybe not rifle season specifically, but definitely a different season. Because I know those guys that, you know, they don't have to go practice. You know, they sight it in with a scope, they shoot it 120 yards, and they can hit, you know, quarter-sized targets and groupings, and they're good for the year. And they'll just bomb them out there. I feel like that should just be in a different classification of a season. maybe a 1 to 2 week season in between that November to December season. That's just my opinion. I don't think that's going to benefit our genetics, our management, our populations at all. I just think that's like
something that needs to be put in place.
Yeah, something that should definitely be put in place in my thoughts. But that's completely irrelevant, I think, to the actual seasons, unless we're starting to talk about, the brown is down thing that's very well known in Michigan to keep those little bit older deer going. I feel like there's a lot of people using a crossbow. They're early season and they're shooting anything and everything they can see. And so if you want to think about it in that way, I think it's a bigger deal than what we were explaining before. But yeah, between the two deer rule, the combo tag, and the crossbow thing, and then pushing back the rifle season, I think would be super beneficial. Even if it's just a trial phase, let's do it for a year or two. Let's just see how it works. What's the worst that's going to happen? It can't really get any worse.
Right. And I think that no matter what we do, I mean, we had Ted Nugent here talking to the head officials out in Lansing, talking about baiting and talking about the minerals. I mean, we can't put minerals out there in the off season, and these deer need it. So we're trying to help the deer, and they don't want to listen to Ted Nugent, so they're not going to listen to anybody else. They believe
that more experience than any of those guys in that meeting.
Exactly. They think they know everything, and they think they know all, and it's like, there's nothing that's ever going to change. It's like Michigan's like that state where you hear that comment, like all you're going to do when you're yelling at that person is you're just beating your head against the wall. Nothing's going to change. It's the same philosophy when you're talking to people in Lansing.
Yeah, it's nothing from what I've seen is going to change. There was a small period of time where I was seeing on social media that there was doing a ballot of the 2-year or a 2-buck tag, and I saw maybe 70, 80,000 people signing it. Never heard from it again. Like it was just gone. Nothing changed. So I don't see any change happening anytime soon. I haven't heard about anything. I really hope we do before it gets to a point where there's no return. And I think it's definitely possible where we could get to that, at least in our lifetime, or as long as hunting is still a thing, I think they really need to get on it quick. I don't know how to do it and how to change that. I'm just praying that someday they'll realize it and say, hey, we need to do this. Who knows? I mean, there's been some recent change with that recent wolf that was killed downstate and the mountain lion sightings, that the DNR were for a long, long time just ignoring that and trying to keep it hush hush. Like, hey, we don't have mountain lions. We don't have wolves, even though there was clear evidence and everybody was knowing what's happening. Everybody knew it was there, and they just kind of hushed it for a long, long time. And now finally they're starting to recognize that. So I'm wondering if, not that specifically, but I'm wondering if there's some type of shift in the system that they're like, hey, we're noticing this now, we're accepting it, we're acknowledging it. So maybe that's a sign that something else is changing. I don't know. I'm really hoping it is. That's my only hope, that there's something inside that's changing there. But other than that, I really don't see much happening, and we really need to ASAP.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like you see that red light when your gas is getting on E. We're like way beyond it. So you got like that 10 miles before you get on the empty. We're like way beyond that. So it's like we need help now.
Yeah.
And you made that comment about that wolf down here in my area. I haven't read the full article about it. I don't know much that's going on about it, but I do know I was reading someone about it. Even the guide thought it was just a coyote on steroids. And I saw a photo when they picked it up, and I read part of the article where the DNR guy said, if you can't tell that's a wolf, you're blind. And clearly looked, in my opinion, like a coyote. It just was a coyote on steroids.
It looks like a giant coyote.
Exactly.
But when there's a 50-pound difference, it's like...
Exactly. And then the narrative here, especially if someone that doesn't know what's going on in Michigan, wolves are up in the UP. So we all know that.
Everywhere. They're everywhere in the UP.
Exactly.
And every other day there.
And you might see some maybe in the northern part of the lower part of Michigan, maybe here and there.
Yeah.
But when you come down south, you just don't hear about it. So you're not thinking that's a wolf. That's not the first thing you're thinking of.
No. Well, I mean, it's the same thing with bears. Like downstate, you hit like below that Clare County area in Harrison County, there really isn't bears. I mean, you don't see bears in Grand Rapids. You don't see them in Lansing. It's like it's super strange why they're just not down there. But once you get past like that Mount Pleasant Clare area, they're everywhere. I had 3 bears at my cabin today that are less than 4 miles from my house. 4 of them in the last 2 days have been there. And then I go downstate, you'll never see them. And then downstate, we see mountain lions, and I never see them up here. Yet last year, I saw 2 wolves up here. So it's like, it's so weird how this state works. And it's more suburban and civilized downstate, of course, but it doesn't make sense that there would be a wolf down there at all. And you would have to come from, it's not going to cross the bridge. And our lakes really don't freeze in the winter. So it couldn't have crossed in the winter. If it does freeze, it's for like a day and maybe a section. Our Great Lakes are too deep. They just don't freeze. Or it came all the way down through Wisconsin, Illinois, and back up, which could be possible. And that's why it was down there. Hard to slip through that little corner of Illinois without getting spotted by anything, since that's a pretty civilized area, right? With Chicago and everything there. But you never know. I believe it was a wolf wholeheartedly because of the size of it. I think it was probably a little bit of a crossbreed between a wolf and a coyote, and just kind of worked its way in there, and it had that kind of color phase. I mean, I've seen completely light tan brown or black bears down here as well. So, I mean, I think it could be a color phase, but when you're talking 40, 50 pound difference, even more, it's a clear tale to me that that's not a coyote. I mean, it looks like a coyote from a photo, but when you compare it to a coyote size, 40, 50 pound coyote, this thing is reaching 100 pounds. It's definitely can't be a coyote, because why would there be only one in that area that's big? And there's not like a bunch of 60, 70 pound coyotes down there. I mean, it wasn't like this was a big coyote area. I mean, it was like normal. And then all of a sudden you have this giant one. So that, in my thoughts, is clear wolf. But then Michigan was denying to have it tested DNA wise to prove it was a wolf. And then from the research that I did on it, Ohio had it tested because it's very close to the Ohio border, and it was positive for wolf DNA. So that's just another thing that makes me go like, what's Michigan doing? Why denying it? Why not testing it? If it's one wolf, it's one wolf. Like what could be the harm of doing it? But I don't know. The whole state's weird, and all the research I did might not even be true either. But from what I saw, it was Michigan denied to have it tested. Ohio did, and boom, it was a wolf because it was so close to the Ohio border, fairly close, that, they were willing to test it. I don't know who or how they did it, but it was positive for a wolf. So it was definitely down here. Who knows where it came from? I think it was more of a hybrid than like a purebred timber wolf or gray wolf, because, you're talking about 120, 130 pound animal. And it wasn't that big, but it was a big, big animal.
There was talks I've heard from friends that they thought it was like a wolf that escaped from the Bynard Park Zoo from that area.
That could be possible too. I've never heard of, you feel like you would see it and them claiming it or something like, hey, we lost a wolf, whatever. There would be more studies about it, or maybe some kind of evidence, but I didn't hear anything about that. But it would make sense. It's not super far from there. And if it was a captive wolf in a zoo for a while, it's probably going to be a little bit smaller than normal. It's probably going to lose a lot of that color that it has. And who knows? But I mean, it was definitely a wolf, whether it came from the park or it came from Wisconsin down, or it's just been in the northern part of Michigan, because we do have wolves in the lower peninsula of the northern part. So who knows? But definitely a strange thing that Michigan seemed to kind of want to hide that, just like they've been hiding mountain lions for the last 10 years. Right. They clearly have them. They're very far and few between, but a friend of mine's neighbor had one in their garage, like a 120 pound cat in their garage. There was no, is this a bobcat? Is this that? Very clearly a mountain lion. And they had to actually go kill it out of the garage. So it was the only way apparently they could get it out. And this was 20 minutes from where I grew up downstate in Lansing. So it just shows, I mean, they're here. But why does Michigan seem to kind of avoid these things? I don't know.
I saw this one photo of the mountain lion up in the UP. I'm sure you've seen it. It went viral quickly of how, yeah, the trail camera one where you could just see its bicep basically. You see like every muscle in it. And I was like, holy shit.
Did you see that recent video where it was actually a trail cam video of a mountain lion taking down a deer?
No, I haven't seen that one.
You'll have to look that one up because that was in Michigan. I believe it was in the UP, somewhere centralized the UP. But this kid captured live video, or I guess a cell cam video, of a mountain lion attacking a deer in broad daylight. And this was all over social media, and it was in the UP. So that, like, clearly you can't fake that. You can't hide that. You can't stage that. I mean, that was one insanely good timing and placement for that camera.
Right.
It's such a rare thing to capture, even in California, where there's mountain lions everywhere, let alone in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So who knows where that thing came from, but it's pretty cool. You're definitely gonna have to look that up. I'm sure it's all over. I saw it on Facebook for like a month straight everywhere.
Oh man. Yeah, I'm gonna have to write that down and check it out later.
Yeah, it's wild.
So for people that don't know much about Michigan, how is Michigan what's like the layout of Michigan? Well, there's someone made a comment here. Johnny Nitro actually had him on the show last week. He made a comment here saying, wolves destroy the deer population so bad, the UP's whitetail population has dropped like crazy.
Well, so the UP, even though it's Michigan, it's not Michigan. The UP is just a miniature Canada. I mean, it's a completely different state. It's crazy that it's even Michigan because it's not even connected.
Yeah, unless you're Wisconsin and everyone says that's just an extension of Wisconsin. It's our state.
I mean, it basically is. It's touching there, but like the environment-wise, it's just like Canada. I mean, I've never been anywhere else that looks like Canada other than the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It's just like Manitoba, and it's an unbelievably amazing place. We have a hunting cabin up there that we go to every year. It's where I'm going to bear hunt this year, and it's beautiful, and I love it up there, but it is a completely different place. It is a different state. I mean, there's only like 4 big towns in there that are like populated, and they're all smaller than like the states or the cities down here. I mean, it's unbelievable how small the population is up there. You can drive 3 hours on some of those roads and barely see houses. It's crazy. And the environment is very different. I mean, if you look at, mostly Canada, it's a lot like that. Downstate in the Michigan, if you're looking at the mitten, you got about this portion and under is cornfields, it's ag fields, it's beans, it's city populated. You have Grand Rapids, you have Detroit, you have Lansing, Kalamazoo, you have all these big cities down here. And then you get past Mount Pleasant and Clare, and it becomes almost pure state land and cedar swamps. You got a lot of pine tree forests. It's a completely different environment, and it's almost like an instant. And me and my buddies always talk like, where is that line? And I think it's pretty much right when you start driving through Clare, Michigan, about halfway through, which is central, it almost completely switches. You'll be seeing, maples and oaks and poplar trees, and all of a sudden it's jack pines and white pines and cedars. You're like, all of a sudden it's all that, and the environment completely changes. And that's where the wolves are. That's where the deer population seems to be really big, but genetics are much worse, and you're seeing less deer, and they're much smaller body, less genetics. They're not getting the nutrients they need. And then we have more bobcats, we have wolves, we have tons of black bears around here. My county specifically is well known for black bears, and we have some of the biggest bears in the state. It's crazy how the state just kind of just divides it in half. There might as well be a fence there because it completely switches. And downstate, you can shoot some pretty nice deer. If you got some 300-400 acre cornfields and ag fields, and you got a big population of hardwood or hard oak flats and stuff like that, you can really zone in these deer where, they're probably not going to leave that 400, 500 acre property their whole entire life. And you can really focus on genetics and not baiting, but you're feeding these deer basically with cornfields. It's like legal baiting. If you plant a cornfield or big food plots, like up by me, I can't even grow a food plot. It's all sand. That's pretty much all it is by me, is sand and clay. So nothing really grows. But my buddy Andrew, who's part of the team, he's got a 200 acre farm down there, and every year he sees the same deer growing and growing, and he can track these deer and be kind of picky. He goes, this one I'm going to let go this year. Next year I'm going to let them get bigger. I saw him 3 years ago. I found his sheds here. Where I'm at, I generally hardly ever find sheds in this area. I usually have to travel, and I'll never see the same deer twice. There'll be 1 year I'll see the same deer maybe 3-4 times in a row during like the rut where they're just chasing in there, and then they're gone. Like specifically my cabin where we hunt, you won't see the same deer twice. They're not living areas. They're just travel corridors. They're just moving through because there's no food. There's not enough nutrients for them around here. There's like no mineral. There's no ag here. They're basically eating ferns and cedar tree branches for their entire life. So their genetics suck. They just don't get big enough bodies. And then I'll drive downstate, let's say in whatever county down there, and I'll see deer 50, 60 pounds heavier and a year older, but 50 more inches on their antlers. It's crazy how this state is almost completely divided. You go southern Michigan, right there on the border, you're practically in Ohio, and you can hunt some giant deer in these big ag fields and big farms. But then up here, it's just a completely different environment. And I know people who brag, oh, I shoot 140s, 150s every year in Michigan on the great hunting. They're like, oh, I'm way down here. I'm like, come 3-4 hours up north and let's see if you can shoot at a 140, 150 every year consistently. I've only seen 2 deer up here since I've lived here in 2 years over 120 inches. And that was from like a lot of scouting and prep. And then I saw them once or twice a year and they were gone. Like I couldn't draw them into me because I can't bait. I can't use even attractant or urine. I can't do any kind of food plots around here. I've tried and I still try, but they don't really grow. I'll plant 3 acres and I'll have 4 leaves of grass growing up. So it's just such a weird state. And then you go to the UP where it's very similar to the upper part of Michigan, but then you have a lot more predators. You have harsher winters. You have way less ag, because even up where I'm at, there's a couple of farms here and there that have some ag and food. But then up there, you have less nutrients. You have more predators. You have much harsher winters. And there's less areas for these genetics to spread. I mean, you're a big peninsula. Basically, everything just comes from Wisconsin, and that's all they get. And then once they hit that border of Michigan, it's a different environment as well. At least in the lower part, we can get some Illinois, Pennsylvania, Ohio genetics and stuff moving through. But the UP is just a whole different game. And we see every other year, we'll see a buck about 130 inches go through a farm in the UP. But we actually have the neighbors, it's probably a 50-acre cornfield or bean field. So we get deer kind of holding those areas, but generally not very long. Like where I'm at, they will not hold. They're gone. That's why I'll just never see the same deer. I usually just saddle hunt, move, and try to get on these travel corridors and hope one day there's a decent buck coming through. Generally, I'm traveling. But yeah, if somebody's never hunted Michigan or they don't understand it, it's very, very difficult. And then not even talking about like places you own or public land. If you're just trying to get permission or a lease, that is even difficult in its sense, because we have the 3rd highest population of deer hunters in the country. And we're also a fairly small state in comparison to like Texas. Even Pennsylvania is a pretty large state to have these huge deer hunter populations. That Michigan's fairly small if you divide them up separately from the UP to Lower Peninsula. And it's a tough state to hunt. I mean, I kind of separate southern part of Michigan as a different state when it comes to hunting. It's basically northern Illinois, northern Ohio to me. But once you start moving north, it is a completely different ball game. And then you go into the UP, and it's another totally different ball game up there as well, because you have way more predators as well. Like I said, the harsher winters, they have a longer winter. They're usually getting snow within late September, early October, and we're usually later October. And they'll hold it until late April, May even. So they have pretty much 6 years of winter, 6 months of winter. Wolves, a lot more bears, a ton of bobcats, and I don't know the specific number, but it was something astonishing at how many bobcats or fawns are killed every spring by bobcats alone. It was an astonishing percentage. Just from these little bobcats, 20-pound cats are killing this many fawns every year. Not even counting the bears and the wolves and everything else up there in the harsh winters and the lack of food and supplements that the deer need. It's pretty unbelievable how much these deer have to kind of fight through every year just to survive, let alone somebody passing a 2-year-old 6-point or 8-point to get to 3-year-old. So coming back to like the hunting situation, the 2-buck rule of Browns down that everybody does, it's hard to pass up a 2-year-old 8-point when it's 100 inches, or because it's the only buck that you've seen that's even remotely that size. And you're like, oh, I'll never see that buck again. So I might as well just shoot it. And that's generally what happens at our UP camp. We'll have 8-9 there, and every year people are like, oh, we've never seen a 100-inch 8-point yet. Nobody's seen one all year. Boom, it's down. That buck will never see 3 years old, whether it's from the hunter, the harsh winters, or the predators. So it's pretty crazy how much these deer have to go through just to get a decent size. Yet then I go to Pennsylvania or Ohio, and I know guys that have been watching the same deer for 4 years in a row, waiting it to hit 5 years. And they're like, oh, at 5 years, I'll kill it. It'll come in this field every day eating corn. It's not saying this state's better than the other and it's easier because you're in Ohio, you're killing giants only because you're in an easier state. Not saying that at all. I'm just saying it's a completely different game. And if nobody's hunted like Northern Michigan or the UP, you're in for a whole new world, man. It's so difficult. And I'll see guys that hunt Ohio and Pennsylvania be like, man, why don't you ever shoot at least a 130, 140 in Michigan? I go, just come up here one weekend. Just try to hunt. Let's just see. Just come up here and scout with me. Like, just let's see what we see. And not even like hunting public land like I do. We have the 40-acre cabin that we hunt, and basically 2 or 3 of it's usable. The rest of it's swampy water where the deer don't even go. And it's overpopulated with bears, so the deer don't like that anyway. Just getting permission. Last year I went 0-38 on permission and leases. Like I offered people good money for leases, and it was either a family member or a neighbor that was hunting the property. They wanted to keep it very private. Michigan is not very well known for sharing hunting land. It's very prestigious. Like they're going to hold that spot, whether it's 1,000 acres and one guy hunting it, they're probably going to hold it to themselves. I asked a farmer this year that had 1,200 acres, and I offered him a pretty good chunk of land, or a pretty good chunk of money to lease it for 3 months. I think I asked him in October. It was already hunting season, so I had no prep. And I offered him a good chunk of money, and he goes, oh, my grandson, or it was either my son or my nephew hunts it. And I'm like, he's hunting 1,200 acres by himself? He goes, yeah, he hunts generally over in that area. I'm like, well, what about this 800-acre chunk here, or this 300 here? Like, can I just lease this little 100-acre chunk? And he was not interested. It's pretty crazy how, like, it's just like a fishing spot. They will hold that tight. They will keep it secret from you, and they won't let you in. Sometimes you get lucky and you find somebody that'll let you lease it or even just get permission, but it is excruciatingly painful how difficult it is. The last 2 years, I'm like 0-50 in the last 2 years of just like cold calling and knocking on doors. It's been rough. Last year I got one yes. He finally said yes, and then he never called me again. And it was like October. He's like, yeah, you can hunt here. And then I would call him and see like, hey, I want to go out there. When can I go out there? And never heard from him again. So even the yes that I got still failed. So it just shows you that like there's so many things against the hunting in Michigan. It makes it really, really difficult.
And I think a lot of people, they have that when they have that mindset right away of, well, I'm not going to see that deer next year, so I got to take him now. So I think that's why people get a little more picky. Like, no, this is my area. No one's going to hunt on it, because you just want to hope for that one chance to see that giant buck. And I don't want anyone else to have the opportunity. So I got to take advantage of what I have.
Yeah. Especially like you said, if you have that 2-buck rule, it'd be like, oh, I'll just shoot one now, and then I'll wait for an even bigger one. And then you shoot it, and you never even see another buck the whole rest of the season. Like, oh,
exactly.
Well, at least I shot one. It's tough, and we definitely need to do something. I don't know what specifically would do it. I don't have enough experience in land management or owning property to see like what deer do. Generally, I'm hunting public and traveling. But I know some guys like Andrew, who's part of the team. He really knows his stuff. I mean, that's all he does is manages the property, scouts it, and he'll set up a dozen cameras in one specific spot to track one deer. And he knows what these deer do, and he's got a lot of good insight on more of the deer management and control, what we should be doing. I have less knowledge on that, basically because I'm usually road hunting, or meaning like I'm traveling. I'm usually driving to Ohio or Wisconsin, or I'm going to Oregon to blacktail hunt, or Africa every year. I mean, I don't really invest all my time into the Michigan whitetail hunting anymore. I don't really own land to do it, for one, but two, I've kind of lost interest in my area. I'm still going to try to get some leases and some new spots this year, but basically I'm traveling. So I don't really get that like knowledge and experience that I wish I had about what these deer are doing every year and how it would benefit. But we're pretty limited in options when, one, we don't have any control. And then two, we're not allowed to bait. We can't even use mineral, even those little powdered mineral, and we can't use attractant anymore. So it's pretty much, we just kind of have to sit with our hands in our pockets and wait for the DNR to make a choice and let us know what we can do. So hopefully something changes very, very soon.
I told my wife, she's like, she asked me about baiting. I said, no, Mission, we're not allowed to bait. She said, but you can plant a clover field. She said, isn't that baiting? I said, yeah, basically.
It's legally
legal baiting.
A lot more work into it. Yeah. I mean, you can plant a cornfield, but you can't put corn in a field. It's like, I don't really get how that works. I mean, I got permission to one spot last year, and it was a massive field. And on the maps, I'm like, oh, it's probably going to be beans or corn. It's going to be great. When I went there, it wasn't even planted. It was just a dirt field. Even with that, I could not go out there and put a pile of corn in there. Like, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even, like, you could say an excuse, oh, I'm trying to plant corn. You couldn't. You'd get busted with it. They were so strict on it. There's really nothing you can do unless you own that land and you can physically plant corn until it grows up and the deer are just casually eating it. That's about all you can do. And up by me, I can't grow corn. I can't grow beans. I've attempted to grow ryegrass, and I'll get maybe 4 strands of grass per acre, and it just doesn't really work out. We're going to try some different kind of minerals this year to try to help it grow, and some fertilizer, but kind of out of luck on that. And baiting is a very big no-no here. You get busted with baiting, there's a good chance you'll either get a big fine or you're going to get your hunting license removed for a couple of years. It's a very big fine. They're very strict on it. We have drones and helicopters flying in our area that are constantly checking from the DNR for bait piles during the hunting season. It's pretty crazy how strict they are on it. They invest all this time into trying to catch you baiting, but they don't invest any efforts into changing our rules, regulations, or management. It's all backwards.
Yeah, I have a comment, but I'm going to leave that for myself. But yeah, unless you can bait unless you're bringing out the corn and you accidentally drop it and you're like, I'm just hunting for squirrels. I'm sorry.
Right. There's a hole in your bag and you were carrying it across the field and you're like, oh, I didn't realize there was like, a pound every acre getting dropped there.
Exactly. I'm just trying to get some pictures of some squirrels, man.
Right. I love those videos where it'll be like a TikTok of somebody carrying a bag and they're like, oh, they trip and it just dumps and they're like, dang it. And then they're just standing above it with a bow. Like, I love that because it's such a joke that we're not allowed to do that. And it's like, why? I'm feeding the deer, if anything. I get the only rule I could see about that is hunting over bait. That rule I could kind of understand because it could be like, it's a little bit like cheating. I went to Kentucky and did a guided hunt, and there's just like 50 pounds of corn every day dumping. You're just waiting. And it didn't feel like hunting to me. I didn't even end up killing anything, but like, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like hunting. It felt like I was just more of waiting for a target to come in front of me. So I get hunting over bait, but I don't understand baiting in general. Like during off season, it should be allowed. Let's say we have a 5-pound daily limit where we can dump out 5 pounds a day, every day before season, just to learn where these deer are coming from, get a little bit of knowledge from them, maybe, draw them into your area. And then maybe even hunt season, they stop it, or just not hunting over it. So if you can prove you didn't shoot that animal off the bait pile, that's one thing. But if you have bait piles and feeders all over the property, you're hunting a different area, that's a different thing. And I think that's the only way to really do it. But it would be very hard to regulate that and like control that, because how could you prove it? Is every DNR officer's got to go to where you shot that deer and see if it was over bait or not? It would be difficult, but that's the only thing I can think of is allow baiting, but not shooting over the bait. But even then, I think just let them shoot over the bait. Every other state does it, and they do really well with it. So why are we the one state or one of the few that just completely gets rid of it? And the thing is, in the UP, we can bait. In the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, in our county, Menominee County, where we deer hunt, you're legally allowed to bait, but only a certain amount every day, and you can hunt over it. It's basically Wisconsin. But it's so strange that downstate, where we have more deer, more land, that we're not allowed to do it. It makes no sense to me. Yet we have all the ag fields down here and such. But, I'll drive around where I live every sunset in the summer and look for deer, and I'll see one or two a night. I drive downstate and I'll see hundreds in each field. I'll just drive and I'll see hundreds of deer in each field. I'll see a 140, 150. I'll see a bunch of bachelor groups of bucks just out in the field eating corn and beans. And then I'll come up here and I'm lucky to see one buck crossing the road. And it's probably a 50-inch 2-year-old. It's insane, the difference. Like I said, I don't know what would really change it. I have the things that I think might help, or we should at least attempt. Let's try, let's experiment, let's see what's going to happen. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to upset some hunters who like the 2-hunt rule or the 2-buck rule, who are like, well, I need to fill my freezer every year. I want to shoot 2. Well, let's do the 1-buck rule and allow them to shoot 4 does. Still filling your freezer and you're making them happy. I know Andy, like I mentioned before, he said one of the things he thinks we should do, and I believe there's another state that does it. I can't remember which. They allow you to shoot 1 buck, and then you have to shoot 1 doe before you can use your other tag. And that forces you to eliminate the doe population a little bit more, because we have an overpopulation of does in our area and a very limited amount of bucks. Our ratio is like 1 to 10 here, at least from my experience. But I went down to Pennsylvania 2 years ago when I hunted with a friend, and I think I saw 7 bucks out of 10 deer every day. I mean, the majority were bucks, let alone the amount of deer I was seeing. Like, there was a high population of bucks. Down here, it's 1 to 10. Up by where I live, it's maybe 1 to 30. So it's pretty unbelievable that the ratios are this bad. So I wonder if there should be some kind of rule of forcing people to take out a doe before using that second buck tag, just to kind of help the management of the side, but also just to kind of force people to maybe wait a little bit. I think there's too many people that aren't just going to follow that 3 or 4 point on one side, because most of our bucks at 2-year-old will be a 4 point on one side, but it's going to be a 80-inch whitetail and 2.5-year-old. And it's never going to reach over 120 inches because it's shot every year at 2.5 years old. It's just how it's going to happen. So I don't have enough knowledge and experience to say what's going to really benefit, but worst case scenario, we need a trial. We need to experiment. We need to see what's going to happen season to season and just switch it up. Because if we keep going down the road that we're going right now, it's only going to get gradually worse, maybe to a point of no return.
Is that like earn your buck? Is that Wisconsin maybe that you were talking about?
I cannot remember. I haven't hunted Wisconsin in over 2 years, so I couldn't tell you if it even changed. It could be the same. It could be different. I have such a scatterbrain when it comes to every state, and every year I forget and I have to relook everything up. I just drew for Kansas, and I'm so confused on how that even works, because it said rifle season, but then it said from like September till January. I'm like, I can't do that with the rifle. But then when I looked up my tag, it didn't even say rifle or bow. And every state is so confusing. And when you're hunting all over the place, it gets difficult remembering. And every year they change things, and you got to redo your research. So it's a lot of work, but I couldn't tell you where that is. But I know there is a state that has that rule. And I believe that's what Andy told me, and that's where he got the idea of it. And that's what we should try. So not fully sure on that one.
I think the main reason behind them not wanting to base, because back in like 2011, 2012, when that blue tongue disease was kind of moving around, that's what kind of sparked it to like, oh, we don't want that to ever happen again, so let's quit baiting. But Ted Nugent said it the best was they're constantly going to be sharing spit. So what's the difference between them sharing spit when they literally go lick each other in the face and them eating over fallen apples over a tree that's natural, an apple tree out in the woods,
or licking branch, or the rubbing antlers on a tree and they're licking the tree, or I mean, it's going to happen.
They're constantly doing it.
Or not.
And the thing You can plant an apple tree and you can hunt over that.
Yep.
And you can hunt over those apples that fall.
Yeah. And you'd be like, oh, that was just there. I'm hunting over the apple tree. Yeah, it's going to take you 4 years to plant that tree and let it grow and let it mature to the point where it's going to grow trees or apples. And then once the apples are gone, you're out, unless you just keep dumping more apples under your tree, even in like December. Look at those red apples under my tree. I mean, there's so many dumb rules with it that just doesn't really make sense. But I don't know. I think we should allow baiting. At least let's trial it for a year. I don't think it's going to make anything worse. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference in the hunting success either. I think it's just going to kind of help boost our chances every year and eliminating some worse genetics and shooting more deer and more does, hopefully. I don't know what else to do. I think it's just, let's do it. Let's try it. I mean, we can't even use like deer urine anymore. And I actually used to part own a deer attractant company. We made deer urine, or we didn't make it. We extracted deer urine and we sold it. And ever since they banned it, we had like no sales because our majority of our sales were in Michigan. And we were doing really well for our first year. The next year they banned it. We're like, there goes 90% of our sales. And our company just went down the hole because of that. And then, so we didn't really bring it back. And that's been 8 years since then. So can't really do anything with it anymore with no mineral. I mean, mineral at least. The fact that we can't even use mineral, which benefits the deer in so many ways, is unbelievably stupid. We're making the populations healthier. We are helping these deer strive. Basically what Michigan says, let them suffer. We can't feed them, can't bait them, or can't give them minerals. Can't even draw them in with a little spray of deer urine in the air. I mean, it's like it's already happening. What does it hurt? There's so many weird things. I mean, the DNR is so crazy about EHD too. And I've talked to a lot of high fence deer managers and deer breeders, and they all believe it's a hoax and it's pointless and it doesn't really affect anything. And they know a lot more than anybody because they're breeding these deer. They understand that. They know what these deer have. And there's almost, I'm not going to say fully I understand it, but there's apparently, from what I've heard, not a cure, but they have genetics now where they can make these deer basically immune to it. And the DNR is fully against it. I'm not going to get too much into it because I don't know fully the right answers, the wrong answers, but that's a rough idea of what I was told. Some deer breeders have the possibilities of breeding the immunity into these deer, and the DNR is against it. So that part also doesn't make sense with everything. So yeah, man, I'm so confused with it, and we could talk about it all day on that specific topic, but I don't really know what else to lay onto that. But
no, I mean, but you said it perfectly. It's us hunters in Michigan are like, this is how we want to help the deer, and the bigger upper people are like, nope, F you, we're gonna do this. We don't care about
Hey, we hunt them every year, every day, and you have people who do it professionally like myself for you, and oh nope, you don't know what you're talking about. This is how we're gonna do it, and it just continually gets worse. They don't listen to the consumer. I mean, if we were looking at this as a business and the DNR, the state was the company, and we were the consumers, you should be listening to the consumer who's purchasing your product every year. And the fact that they don't just makes people want to purchase it less, makes us less interested in that company. And it's made me less interested in hunting Michigan specifically. I do out of convenience. I live here. I can get a tag over the counter as a resident for $40 and get 2 buck tags and a doe tag and hunt 4 months out of the year. But generally I'm traveling. I'm like, all right, I'm going to get out of here. And if I have a weekend free while I'm at home or down here for the holidays, I'll do some hunting. But basically I'm getting out of here when it comes to the majority of it. Unless you're downstate and you have a family owned 400 or 500 acre, farm, then yeah, I would definitely be there all the time hunting it and managing it. But if you don't really have that situation, hunting's going to be tough for you, especially public land. And up by me, it's really bad. They don't manage it. Downstate, they at least kind of manage it. Where I was downstate, I hunted an area called Rose Lake State Park. Not far from you, actually. It's just north of Lansing. And it was probably a 5,000 acre area, little segments. And they actually managed it roughly. I would consistently see DNR out there. There were certain chunks of land that would actually plant food plots they never really did a good job. They just like throw corn out there and it would grow. But then you'd have one 400-acre chunk, and you'd see 15 trucks out there every morning during bow season, and you couldn't even get to your spot without running into 6 of them. So they remotely managed it, but then that hunting was so brutally bad because of how overpopulated it was, and the deer weren't even there because they were seeing 14 hunters and smelling all these different people all the time. They weren't even there. So there's so many things that needs to change, and I think it all just starts at the management in the state, and then they need to look at us as a consumer and listen to the state's consumers of what we think should happen. And let's try it for a year. Let's try it for 2 years. Let's see if it can actually change. Let's see if there's any benefits from it. And if not, go back to your dumb rules that you have now and see if it works, but at least try it. It's almost like they're just too stubborn. Like there's no listening to it. It's unbelievable. And like you were saying, Ted Nugent tried to go there, who is one person you should be listening to, not just as a world-renowned hunter, but also who manages deer farms, and still yet they don't listen. Like he knows more than anybody, and they still look at it as, you don't understand it. And like, look at Steve Rinella, one of the most famous hunters in the world right now, grew up, in Western Michigan, Grand Rapids, Harrison area. He used to hunt the state forest that I did that river hunt on, and he got the heck out of here as soon as he could. And he still talks about how bad Michigan hunting is. You don't see him coming back to Michigan to hunt on any of his shows or even just for fun. He doesn't do it because he knows there's just no point to it. I think we're going to get to a point where our hunting is going to be so bad that we already have noticed in the last 2 years, like 20% less tags purchased every year. Our deer hunter population is just dramatically dropping, which in a long sense, it could benefit less hunters, maybe let something happen, or a much worse. It's hard to tell what would happen in a few years with that, but it's only going to get worse. And that's not even talking about the generations of people, because there might be in another 10, 15 years, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of hunters in the industry. And people like us are the only ones trying to hold on to this industry and keep it going, not just for hunting, but for management. I mean, hunting is the number one way to actually manage animal populations. All these anti-hunters and vegans or whatever you want to say, they're not doing anything to actually manage the animal populations. Like there's nothing really happening with them. Hunting is the number one conservation effort that we have, and it dramatically benefits it no matter what way you look at it. I get hundreds of people asking me, hating, even on the planes when I fly to Africa, just freaking out on me for Africa hunting, but they don't understand what goes into it. Like if there was no hunting in Africa, there wouldn't be many animals left. A lot of them would be extinct, like the sable. The Prince of Africa was my dream animal. And when I went there, he goes, oh yeah, like 15 years ago, we didn't have, or a little longer than that, I forgot how long, but he goes, we didn't have sable here. We reintroduced them here, started hunting them, and it made money to bring in more. And now there's a plethora of them there, and it's one of the most renowned species to go hunt there. It's pretty crazy that a lot of people are just ignorant to understanding and learning about it, and they're also stubborn. You want to try to teach them about it, and they're just, nope, don't want to listen. Nope, they won't listen to you. But like hunting is the number one conservation effort. So let's imagine in the next 10 years, our hunter population goes down to 20%. Who knows what's going to happen? Car accidents by deer will shoot up by 50%. Farmers' crop harvest will go down by 70% because of the overpopulation of deer and eating the seeds and whatever. There's so many things that could chain reaction from it. So hopefully we make some changes here, who not just helps promote the management of the state, but also promotes hunting in the state, where maybe the next few generations of people will want to continue to hunt. Like me as a hunter, when I was 8 years old, 9 years old, I think I was starting to hunt when I was about 10 years old. But roughly then, if I was in the industry I was now, like, let's say you just threw 10-year-old me up in an area that I'm hunting, I would have had no interest in it. I would have been like, this is terrible. I never see anything. I never kill anything. It would just totally take the interest out of my life. And something needs to change. Like, I'm not going to keep going on it because I don't have enough experience or knowledge to go into detail, but some huge things need to change, and very, very quickly. before, like I said, we get to a point of no return.
Yeah, I remember reading this article from Fox 2 Detroit News that I can't remember the time frame it was. They did it, but they started off at like 800,000 tags, and then now it's down to 550, something like that.
300,000 down.
Yeah, it moved that down, and I think it was like 10 years. And the youth, they're just declining rapidly. So it's like you said, they're stubborn, and they wonder why the numbers are declining. And it's basically you're staring them right in the face, like, this is why, but you don't want to acknowledge it.
Yeah. I mean, you look, the DNR they have two jobs. Control the hunters, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the word is. I'm trying to think of, like, manage the hunters, but also managing the conservation of it. It's not just managing hunters, it's managing the conservation, the populations of the deer, and the fact that they don't listen to the people who are actually doing that is insane to me. It's like they've almost just forgot about conservation of the animals and the populations or whatever. And they just only focus on the hunters. All right, what can we keep you from doing? What can we allow you not to do? Let's keep watching you and just forget about conservation in general. I mean, that's literally why we have hunting in certain places. Look at Australia as an example, or Florida. You have to hunt those kangaroos, or there'd be an overpopulation of them. You have to hunt those iguanas and gators and snakes, there'd be an overpopulation of them. It's like Michigan just ignores conservation in general and only focuses on the hunters. And we are just the conservationists. We're the people helping manage it, but we're the ones told what to do. And the fact that the state pretty much says, no, you can't do this or that, it literally makes no sense, because conservation is the far most important thing over the rules and regulations we have as hunters. That should be second.
Mm-hmm. And I think the main thing is they just want to, how can they increase the money in their own pocket?
Yeah. So where does that money go? Because I don't see a whole lot of money in my area, at least my county, of conservation money that we get. I don't see it going anywhere. I have no idea where it is.
I have a pretty good idea where it's at. It's in somebody's pocket. So
a couple people's pockets.
Yeah.
One where it should be, and that's another thing too. I wouldn't know who or where, so I don't know like exactly what's going on or what's going wrong, but something needs to change, and I just hope it happens soon. I'm still at a younger age where I still have a lot of time to see where it goes, but somebody a little bit older generation who's been hunting their whole life, they might not have a whole lot of time to be able to do the things they want to do and to see where it's going to go to hopefully get better. It's only going to get worse for them. And that sucks to see. Every state should be getting better with every person should be getting better. So should our state. Our state should be there should always be a gradual increase in productivity in a term. I don't know what the word I want to use, but should always be growth. And our state is only declining at a very steep decline. And I don't really see anything changing. I really hope it does, but I think there's going to be in 10 years, there's already less hunters. How many 12 to 16-year-olds are hunting nowadays? Very, very little, let alone another 10 years. Our generation, like my children's generation, might not even be hunters. And without people like us who are trying to promote it, or big names like Cam Haines, Steve Ranella, or anybody else, like without those guys, hunting is just going to eventually be nothing, which means conservation is going to be really, really bad.
Yeah. And I want to do my best to help promote it, and you can only do so much, but I feel like, we kind of been saying the same thing, but yeah, it's a state that Michigan used to be this great place to go hunt. We had Fred Bear here in Michigan, and it's just an amazing state, but yet at the same time, it's like you flip one side of the coin, it's beautiful, and the other side is just dark evil. And
yeah, look at some of the names that have come from Michigan.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Ted Nugent, Fred Bear, Steve Ranella. Some of the biggest names in hunting ever. People who have, Fred Bear basically brought hunting to existence, and then you have Steve Ranella, who is holding it to existence in a sense. Like, he's probably the biggest name right now who doesn't just promote kills. He's promoting conservation and cooking, everything about it. And that's why I love his content, because he doesn't just show the killing. He shows everything behind it, which is what hunting is about. It's not just about that kill shot, the dead animal, that tag field, is about everything. So you look at Fred Bear, who brought hunting to an existence, at least onto a digital world, in stories and books and whatever you want to talk about. But then Steve Rinella, who's holding on to that. And these people all came from Michigan. Michigan used to be a very well-known state. I mean, the natives lived here, and it was one of the most, like, well-renowned places for hunting and fishing, and it was an amazing place to live. And now look what it is today. I think it's one of the top 10 worst deer hunting states in the country right now, if you're excluding like the states that obviously don't have whitetail. Alaska, California, like very, very little. Hawaii, places like that. But it's very low on the totem pole. I mean, if you're looking at even just straight down below us, all the way down to pretty much Florida, I'd say Florida's worse than us. But I mean, Georgia, Alabama, even though they're right next to it, have really good deer down there. And we are probably one of the worst ones there. The only other states that I think are really bad are if you're looking up towards like way East Coast, like over there. But I even hear from guys over there that see really, really good deer growth, and it's getting better for them over there. And yet here, it's only getting worse. And we're in this little section surrounded by some of the best deer hunting in the world, and then we have some of the worst. So, like, what does that tell you?
Right. I know I talked to some guys from Maryland, and to hear them, like, when I think of like my top 10 states that I want to hunt big deer, Maryland didn't crack my top 10. But after talking to those guys, it's right there, man. They're shooting some giant bucks out there.
That's what I was saying. Like, that East Coast, you don't think of it, but it's actually getting a lot better.
Yeah.
It's growing well. Like Maryland, like you're saying, New Hampshire, Delaware, all those little places up there, you don't even think about. Like, do they even have deer? But it's actually been getting really good. And some of those places are kind of little secret spots that people don't talk about, and they don't post it a whole lot. But I've seen some trail cam pictures of deer in those areas, and it's unbelievable. Every year it seems to be getting bigger and better, and I'm hearing more about it. And it's kind of getting leaked, like a little sleeper state. But
Yep.
Michigan just gets worse every year.
Exactly.
And I'm getting real close to I love Michigan. I mean, if you're looking at a fishing point of view, I think Michigan's one of the top 5 best states in the country to fish. If you're not really talking about, like, obviously Florida or Louisiana, where they have saltwater fishing, but freshwater, I mean, we have the most freshwater in the country. We have some of the best fishing, not even just the Great Lakes, just the rivers and the inland lakes. I mean, it's unbelievable how good of fishing we have. And that's managed very, very well. Yet then the hunting is brutally bad. It's like, I think the DNR does a really good job on the fishing side. That's something I've always noticed they've done really well at. And I think they're starting to get worse at, because fishing is dramatically getting worse the last few years. But I think the hunting side is just like nothing. It's like they don't even care about it.
No, and I think the reason why they've kind of kept up the fishing side of it is because, I mean, actually we have the nickname the Great Lakes State. So
Tourism.
Huh?
I was saying tourism.
Yeah.
Like, that's why they put so much into it, because we get so much tourism for like out-of-state fishermen.
Exactly. I mean, Traverse City, MAGNUS City. Yeah. I've been meaning to say that video that you're talking about, that mountain lion, Johnny Knight made a comment. He said that video was near Iron County.
Okay, so Iron County's northwest, so that's practically close to Wisconsin.
I grew up in that county, so I know exactly where that's happening.
So that's close to Wisconsin. So our cabin, I mean, you knew what you were talking about, Escanaba, northwest of there. So, I mean, you're on the border of Wisconsin and the UP, but it's still Michigan, whether the DNR admits it or not.
Right.
But there's been more sightings actually downstate than there has been in the northern part, which seems surprising, but I see a lot more videos and trail cam pics and people talking about them downstate than they are in the UP, which you'd think there's more in the UP, and I still believe there are, but there's also 90% less people and a lot more land and forest for them to hide in. So you got that, I guess.
Yeah, I heard stories that one was seen in like 4 miles down the road from my parents' house. I was like, what? I was shocked. I was like, I'll start bringing my pistol out there when I'm hunting just to make sure I don't get attacked by some mountain lion.
I sometimes do that just for bears. I mean, I'm always like, there was a bear at my cabin gate like an hour before we started this, broad daylight, and they usually don't come out in daylight, but the last 2-3 days they've been wandering around my cabin broad daylight, and I'm like, I'm gonna go out there one day just to hang out with the dog, and he's just gonna be sitting there. And generally the black bear's gonna run away. You know, they're pretty spooked, but you never know. You might spook him, and he might react out of instinct. So most of the time I've been carrying my pistol around me recently.
I don't blame
you. No.
Exactly.
I'm not worried about wolves around here, but exactly. In the UP, I'm worried about wolves. I've heard them very, very close to me almost every night while deer hunting there.
When we were up there in the UP last on New Year's, last in December and January, whatever, there was one night where it was a full moon, wolves, like right down the road. I was like, oh shit.
It is such a beautiful sound, but also so terrifying.
Exactly.
It's so eerie. It's like, okay, it could be death, but it's also such an amazing sound to hear. And it makes you happy, but then also makes you a little nervous. Like, all right, these things are getting close. And I had a story happen to me, 8 years ago, maybe. I was young. I was very new into bow hunting, but I was leaving my tree stand at like 7:30. It's just now pitch black. And I'm walking back from my tree stand. I hear a wolf howl. I was like, sounded like a ways away, maybe a couple hundred yards. I'll be fine. It's in the thick woods. I only got 400 yards to walk to the ATV. I'm walking. I make it about 100 yards, and I hear it again. And I'm like, sounded a little bit closer that time. So I walk another 200 yards away from the quad. I get into a clearing where I can start to see a little bit more. It's a bright night, and I could see everything. And then I hear this thing, and it sounded like it was less than 150 yards. I'm like, okay, this thing is moving. And it's getting close to me. It doesn't feel like it's slowly walking. It feels like it's moving pretty quickly. And then when I heard it that time close, I'm kind of like checking the wind. My wind, of course, was going right towards it. I'm like, this is good. So I start really shuffling back to the quad. And I get to the quad, and I heard it one more time. It was about it sounded like it was within 100 yards. And that point, I immediately started making as much noise as I could. I started that quad up. I was revving it, hitting every noise and button I could, and hitting the lights on. And I was like a 3-mile quad ride out of there, but I was moving. I didn't care what. I was moving because I'm like, all right, if there's one wolf out here, I'm fine. But the fact that it sounded like it was coming into me made me think this thing ain't scared of me, and it's curious of whatever is happening. I got out of there. I didn't like it. That was one of the most like just eerie feelings. Like, it wasn't scary to the point where I needed a full-on sprint or I was terrified for my life, but it was just such this feeling that there was something stalking me. I didn't like it. It was probably just one wolf, but still a terrifying feeling.
My dad, he hunted up in the UP with his best buddy, and he told me a story where one wolf was basically the same thing happened to you. It kept walking closer to them as they're walking back to the cabin, and he told me, it was like, talk about a time where it's like you're freaked out and it's like pitch black and there's like no moon really. He told me that was a moment where he's like, I'm freaked out, man.
Yeah. It's not like a scare, like a jump scare feeling of, whoa, like you're running away or something. It was just this like gut feeling that just makes you like, you know, it's there. It's not running at you or anything, but you know it's there. It's getting closer, all by myself in the pitch black. It was like middle of October. I'm just like, I don't like this at all. You know, I got to that quad. As soon as I was like on something, I was out of there. I didn't like it. And I had that visual and memory in my head like it was yesterday. It's just, I don't think it'll leave. And I've been charged by bears, grizzly bears and brown bears in Alaska and stuff. And that's like a fright. Like right now, it's like, oh, it's coming at me. It's terrifying. But something about that wolf stalking you, because it just felt like you were being hunted. And that feeling of being hunted and stalked quietly in a pitch black night by yourself, all you're hearing is the leaves rustling. It was just such a feeling that I didn't like. It was definitely, I felt like I was on the bottom of a food chain for sure.
All right. Well, I hope I never have to have that feeling myself.
It's cool to experience, but also not fun to live with all the time, knowing that could happen again.
Right. Well, Jesse, getting towards the end of the show here, Was there a story or a topic though that you didn't get to share or we didn't get to talk about tonight?
Man, there's so many things from the
I'm
last
sure you got a
few years.
million stories though.
Yeah, I mean, every time I come on here, people are like, I want to know Africa, because we've gone through some crazy stuff in Africa of being charged by hippos and spearing hippos last year with Tim Wells. I mean, there's so many like crazy things that have happened in the last 2 years, especially in Africa. Like the impala I hunted out of the tree last year with the saddle, like that was super cool. And I pulled a Nile crocodile out of the river. There's like a little watering hole right where I was going to impala hunt. And I'm like pulling it out. Tim Wells is like filming it on GoPro. And I'm yanking this thing by the tail because we didn't want to go in the water. Like we're toasting the water. So like there's just so many cool stories that we could talk about for days. And I don't know if I could pick out one specifically that would be anything cool or different than probably what you've heard from other people. But I do know like one thing is like if I'm a antlered animal guy. I love to come and I would like love to hunt moose. It's like my number one bucket list hunt. Elk hunting, deer, whitetail, mule deer, everything like that's my thing for sure, and it always will be. But if you haven't done Africa, you have to do it. Not even just to hunt the species, just to experience the different world. I mean, it's like you're on a different planet there. It's not like, oh, you just went to a different country for a week. You were in a different world. It's like Avatar. It's such an amazing place. It's like my second home now. The last 2 years I've spent a few months there, and just everything from, you know, the environment to the species of animals. It's just crazy. You know, as a kid, I grew up, like when I saw the sable in a magazine, I was like 13 years old. I'm flipping through a hunting magazine. I see this animal. I'm like, there's no way that thing is real. It was like a unicorn, but with two horns. I'm like, this all black, like jet black unicorn. I'm like, this ain't real. And I'm seeing people hunt it. And then ever since then, I was just like, that's the animal that I gotta experience that. And when I saw it the first time in my life in Africa, it was just like so many flashbacks of my childhood happened at once. My heart was just beating out of my chest. It's such a different feeling. And not because it's some insanely difficult animal to hunt or it's so rare, even though it looks like it. I mean, but they're called Prince of Africa for a reason. I mean, they're just so beautiful, majestic, and smart. But it was just something about seeing that as a kid and experiencing something on the complete other side of the world that felt like I was on like Avatar. I was on a different planet. And that's how Africa generally is. I mean, you know, you watch National Geographic as a kid and you're seeing lions run around chasing gazelle and wildebeest and even Lion King as a kid. Like when we shot the first wildebeest, like I was like young, like that's for Mufasa. Like, I mean, there was so many like memories as a kid of going there. It's just, it is like you're on a different planet and you experience something so different. You can go out there, you know, in the bush and see 40 different big game species and get to choose and hunt whatever you want. And they're all different in a different way. And they're all hunted differently. And they're all like just so completely different species. And like you come to the States, you know, you got your whitetail, your mule deer, basically the same thing, a little bigger, a little different antlers. The elk's a little bit bigger than that. The moose is even bigger than that. But they're all very similar species. They're hunted, I wouldn't say the same, but remotely the same. And then you go to Africa and there's just so many different species and they're all so different. Learning the different sounds. I remember sitting up on this cliff on a river and you could hear everything below us. And me and my buddy Dylan, who's helping me guide there, and we're looking for a kudu, and we're hearing all these sounds that sound like they're not real. And it's like, oh, that's a baboon. There's a Cape buffalo down there. Oh, there's probably a leopard down there making these sounds. And it's just crazy, all the different things that are happening. It's like this, I couldn't even explain it. It's like a Jurassic Park, but real, like Africa, like animals. And there's this one story that I'll tell before we go that's kind of cool just because it was so like, felt so wild when we were there doing it. But me and Dylan were hunting a kudu for 30 days. I was targeting one species, the kudu. And on the 30th day, I actually ended up getting it. It took 30 days of brutal misery. I had to go to the hospital. I slit my leg open and like all this crazy stuff. And it led down to one day finally killing this kudu on the last sunset of the month. But we're sitting in these Mapani trees, just waiting for some kudu to come into a watering hole, and nothing's happening. And then we hear some barking, and the kudus kind of have a barking sound when they're stressed or they feel something is coming to attack them. So they kind of do this burr, burr, almost like a weird dog. And he goes, there's probably a leopard around us. It's like right before sunset. I'm like, there's a leopard around here. Okay. And if you've been to Africa, they call the leopard flying chainsaw for very specific reasons. If you shoot at them or they're mad, they will just jump in the air and just knives everywhere. They're a terrifying animal. But he hears them barking. He goes, there's probably a leopard. And we're looking for these kudu, and the kudu disappear. They were supposed to come in, but something spooked them. So we go down a couple hundred yards away where we were hearing the barking, and no shit, we looked below, and there was very, very fresh leopard prints right there within 10 minutes of us sitting back waiting for them. So we get behind these leopard prints, and we're trying to start in a track, not to go for the leopard, but because my other friend, Matt, who's from Sweden and now lives in from New Zealand, now lives in Sweden. He was there hunting with us too. He's hunting impala out of a saddle, and he shot an impala, and he lets us know he shot one. He goes, I don't know, it took off running here, and we found out along the leopard's prints that we were following were leading right up to his wounded impala, and when we found where the impala was, it was gone. It was already dragged away from the leopard. So as I'm hunting a kudu, the leopard was tracking his impala that he shot, and it already took it. So it was just like crazy, like you're hunting something that's also being hunted at the same time. And there's like all these different species, and you're just in the middle of this, in the bush and jungles of Africa. It was such a different feeling to me than, being grown up hunting whitetail in ag fields or something in a tree stand. Like it was so different. And that's why when I went there this year, I was like, could I spot and stalk with the rifle? Yes. Could I sit in a blind with a rifle? Yes. I didn't really care to do the rifle thing. So like my kudu was spot and stalk with the rifle. And I actually passed a really nice bull with my bow because I wanted to do it with the rifle I was using. But it's so wild because I wanted to go up and sit in a saddle in Africa because it's not something you see much of. Most of the people there you see hunts of, they're on foot with shooting sticks and a rifle, or they're sitting in a blind or spot and stalk with the bow. Even spot and stalk with the bow is fairly rare in Africa. Not many people do it because they just want their animal dead, and they're not saying a bad hunter, but there's a lot of them are just lazy. They just want to sit and shoot at it. And everything I wanted to do was spot and stalk. So I'm like, all right, let's go this year. Let's turn whitetail hunting into an Africa style. So I just climbed a tree, no climbing sticks. I just brought the saddle platform and my saddle, and I just climbed this big leadwood tree right by this little dried up river where we pulled that Nile crocodile out of. Obviously, it would have just scared all the impala away. And I'm sitting there for 3 days during the hottest time of day, 3 days in a row, waiting for something. First day, I saw a bunch of animals, and it's so wild. Like I was just sitting there. It felt like I was deer hunting because I'm just sitting and waiting and listening. And all the sounds that I heard, I'm seeing 3,000-pound Cape buffalo walking by. I'm hearing like leopards eating shit. And then all of a sudden, like these impalas are coming in to exactly what I wanted to do. But like, I didn't know what was going to come in front of me. When you're whitetail hunting, you know what's going to happen. It's going to be a doe. You might see a turkey, maybe even a coyote here and there. But like in Africa, like I had no idea what was going to come in front of me. I saw a zebra walk out in front of me, and I'm just like, this is insane. And if I wanted to, I could have hunted anything I wanted. But I was specifically aiming for an impala because it's like the African whitetail. It's like the similar size. It's kind of horns, antlers, similar size. Like it just felt like the most similar to me. So I wanted to do it in the way that we hunt whitetail. So I did it, DIY hunt, just climbed the tree into a spot I thought looked good. 3 days later, finally, after about 5 opportunities getting close to these impala, which are a lot smarter than you think and extremely fast. You think a whitetail can drop an arrow quickly, and impala can drop an arrow twice as fast. They are so quick, and they're smaller. So finally, after 3 days, a big ram impala comes in front of me, and right before I shoot it, an old ram spooks him, and he runs away. I'm like, oh, just 3 days wasted. And then finally, the older ram gave me a shot, and I was like, I'm taking it. Smacked him right through the heart, about 25 yards, and he ran off into the bush. And I'm by myself. And like 10 minutes later, I get out of the stand. And I still need to post all this footage. It's some epic stuff. But I finally climbed down the stand, and I'm just by myself, like I said. So I just like, all right, let's just go for it. Let's just track this blood. And I had really good blood because, I mean, I smoked it through the heart. It was one of the most satisfying shots I ever made. And it goes right through it. And I'm tracking the blood. And then there was a slight moment in my mind where I'm like, just like home, tracking a whitetail through the woods. And then you go, oh, yeah, I'm in Africa. There's something around every bush, every mopani tree. There's a leopard, a lion, a hippo going to run at me. Like, you just never know. Or Black Death, or the Black Cape Buffalo is going to run me over. Like, you just never know. And I'm by myself, which generally you don't do in Africa. You're with a guide or PH or something. But I was really cool with the outfitter, working with them, and they let me just kind of do my thing. And I'm like, oh, man, someone's just going to come out and kill me. And I'm going to be all by myself out here. Nobody's going to know where I'm at. I'm screwed. But finally, I'm looking everywhere, and I missed the impala. I'm like, where the heck is it? I can't find it. Well, then I like look over my shoulder, and it's just flat on the ground right behind me. I just walked by it, but it stopped bleeding because it was running with no blood in it. Like, it bled out so fast that for a while it was running with no blood, just on adrenaline or whatever, and then just crashed. It was pretty cool. So I finally grabbed it, threw up on my back, and that's where the photo was coming from, and carried it out. And then the guys met me by the road like an hour later, and I was just waiting for him over there, waiting for him to pull up the road. They find me, throw the impala in the back of the truck, and we drive back. And that was just something different because, one, not something generally people do in Africa, hunting alone, especially in a tree saddle with a bow, just kind of not over a bait pile, not really over a watering hole. It was just like a dried up creek. So it was just very, very different. And that was like probably my favorite hunt because of the uniqueness of it. Just being by myself, not knowing what's going to come under me, and then accomplishing exactly what I wanted to do with very little African experience. I maybe had 6 weeks of hunting in Africa before that, which seems like a lot, but to the African guides there, it's nothing. So it was cool. It was unique, and it's just a memory that it's never going to leave my mind. It was basically the most fun hunt I've ever had, other than like, your first whitetail hunt or something like that. But it felt like a whitetail hunt in Africa with the unknown of anything can happen. So if somebody's watching this and they've never hunted in Africa and they're like, well, I don't really like to kill shit out of a blind or shoot something with a rifle, like, there's options to do other things, especially if you just communicate that with your outfitter. When I first got there, we were hunting over a watering hole out of a blind, and I was going to shoot an impala. This was my first year there. He's like, yeah, hopefully it comes right in front of the watering hole and you can shoot it. I'm like, how far is that watering hole? He goes, 15 yards. I'm like, well, what's the other side of the watering hole? I could shoot across there too. He goes, no, too far. And it ranged it. It was like 42 yards. I'm like, you guys don't realize that most whitetail hunters now, like, if you're going to a tack event, 40 yards is your shorter shot. We're shooting 30 all the way to 120 yards comfortably, like with patterns. So I'm telling these guys, like, I can make that shot if it goes over there easily. If I get a shot at 40 yards across this pond, I'm shooting it. Like, and a lot of them are like, no, too far. But I'm like, no, we can do it. I have confidence in me. So if you can communicate that with these people that you go with the understanding of, like, rule number 1, do not use a mechanical in Africa. That is something I learned from another guide or another hunter that was there with us. Use a fixed blade, which I use anyway. And you're going to have to learn to kill shots in African animals. It's not behind the shoulder like you would think. All North American animals, it's behind that shoulder. African animals, it's in the shoulder. Their vitals are right behind that shoulder, so you're generally going to shoot through the shoulder. So that's why you're going to want to shoot, a little heavier arrow, a little bit more draw weight if you can, a little more forward weight, and just learning that shot placement. In my first animal ever, my buck, I shot behind the shoulder. I wasn't told it yet. I didn't know. I was like, money shot right behind the shoulder. Turns out I hit nothing. I just hit like maybe a little vital artery that made him bleed out after a while. And then when he found me, he was spewing. But I'm like, tracked him forever. But if I went through that shoulder, it would have been toast. So, like, if you can communicate those things with the outfitter that you're with, and, they have a guide and trackers with you to help you and keep you safe, like, you can do some really cool stuff in Africa. And next year when I go back, I'm going to be doing some more saddle hunts for different species and just things that generally you don't see or hear of, because I want to be able to have that freedom to kind of hunt in my own way. And I don't want to sit in a blind over a specific watering hole that everybody's hunted over in the past. So I hiked out to my own spot. Me and Dylan scouted it, found a good tree. I hiked it over a watering hole, and then it played out after 3 days exactly what I wanted to do. I could have shot a Cape Buffalo. I could have shot a wildebeest or a zebra, but I was waiting for one nice ram impala. And that process of doing that was just so satisfying. I've done a lot of cool animal hunts, but that was like the most satisfying hunt I've ever done, because even my sable hunt, like that was my dream animal. But that simple impala hunt was so satisfying because of the environment that happened, the way it happened, everything that went into it was just so different. So I recommend, if you've never hunted in Africa, do it. It's a lot cheaper than you'd think. You can go there and shoot 4 or 5 animals for under $5,000, and then, pay for your $1,500 flight or whatever. And you can have the best week of your life, really. I highly recommend it.
I gotta get out to Africa now.
You definitely do. I'm not just trying to sell it. Like,
no, you got me speechless with that story, man. It's something that I really want to do now. Like, I'm picturing myself doing that.
Yeah.
And I gotta get out to Africa. Now you said that you get all those animals for quote unquote cheap, but yeah,
very affordable. Very affordable. People think it's so expensive. It's not.
Yeah.
You go to Texas and shoot a high fence kudu for $15,000. You can go to Africa and shoot 13 animals for $15,000. You could shoot 6 kudu for that price, and you're in Africa doing it. The main thing is people don't like flying, and they're scared, like, oh, I'm going to get diseases, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get in trouble. Like, South Africa is a fairly easy place to travel to. And if you're working with a good outfitter and a guide, they can hook you up, and everything goes so flawlessly and smoothly. Like, the only issues I had once was with my gun, because I accidentally had some shells that I didn't know about in my case. But other than that, like, it's very, very easy. If you can get over a flight, which I hate flying long distances because I can't sit still. I got a sleeping pill. I slept through 80% of it, and it was well worth it. Like, you have to go to Africa, man. Like, imagine yourself in a tree swaying, and you don't know if there's going to be a leopard in that tree with you, a lion's going to come under you, and there's 50 big game species that you have no idea what's going to walk in front of you. And when it happens, you don't specifically need a tag to draw for it. You can go, I actually feel like shooting that. I want to hunt that animal. Let me do it. But that's not what I wanted to do. I went out every day specifically targeting one animal and passing hundreds of cool animals. But I went out with a goal because I wanted it to feel like an achievement other than just shooting anything I saw. So there's a lot of different things you could do. You could go out with 3 species that you're targeting, and whatever comes in front of you, take a shot at it. But it just brought me back to like that 12-year-old me again, first learning to hunt, learning about deer and elk and mule deer. It was like I didn't know nothing. Learning the footprints, learning the sounds they make, the habits they make, what times a day they come out, what they eat, what areas I should be hunting, everything. It was just a new world for me. And that really made me enjoy hunting even more. And it just increased my explosion of obsessity of hunting, because there was so much more to learn, which makes me want to go and travel new countries, because I'm like, there's so much more to learn. I love whitetail hunting, and a lot of people are just whitetail for life, and that's cool. But when you get to learn and experience new things, and that's like my biggest motto in life, and like my goal is just to experience as much as possible and learn as much as possible. Like, I want my life resume to be 50, 100 pages long. Like, I just want to experience everything. And I think some people don't want to step out of their comfort zone. And I think if you're a hunter, Africa is the first place to do that. Just go do it. You're never going to regret it. I have some friends that are going this year, and we're doing some raffles this year to go, and we're selling some hunts this year. And whoever buys through us is actually going to come with me and hunt, and I'm going to film it for them, and they'll get photos and videos, and it'll be a really fun hunting trip. But I'm super excited for it. And if anybody hasn't done it, specifically you, man, you got to do it. Save up a little chunk of money, do whatever you can, sell something for it, it'll change your life in hunting, especially if you're bringing a bow. Like the bow, you got to do it if you're a bow hunter.
Yeah, I only hunt with a bow, so I'm going to be definitely telling my wife, all right, we're going through the whole house and listing everything that, all right, we're going to sell this,
Yeah.
this, and this.
Start budgeting, man. Even if it's 2 years ahead of time, it's so worth. It's going to expand your hunting knowledge and experience and fun. Like it's just going to blow your hunting, your love just so much more for it. You know, I've always been a huge hunter, but after going to Africa a few years, I'm even more obsessed with it. And it'll never go away. And you can never run out of species, basically. Like you could go to Africa every year and shoot 3 different species every year, and you're still going to have tons of new ones to try to hunt. And they're all different colors and sizes, and it's just so much to do there. So it's truly an amazing place. And it's like my second home now.
Sounds like it's kind of kickstarted back into your hunting passion, basically, is what it kind of sounds like in a way.
Exactly. Like, let's say it was starting to get burnt out or dwindle down because you've done so much. It just shot it right back up. And that's what I'm hoping to do in like Europe. And I'd love to go to Australia and hunt for the same reasons. And how much hunting in Africa is important, not just to go kill these animals, but like the conservation is so big. I'm not going to go into it all right now. I mean, we spoke about it in our podcast too, but it is so beneficial. Don't look at it as you're killing these, these big reservation animals. You're not. You're protecting hundreds of them, like the elephant thing. To go on a quick thing, like you might hunt one elephant that brings in $15,000 of profit to now protect hundreds of elephants and to keep poachers away. Like if there's no money, these poachers are just going to come in and kill them. If there's no money to put in the conservation to protect them. It's just going to get worse and worse. The hunting, it's sad to see an elephant killed. And I don't know if I could ever do it still. I'm still like, I don't know if I could ever kill an elephant or like a giraffe or something like that, or a rhino, but I understand the benefits of it because it draws in so much money. You could have a poacher go kill 8 of them and nothing comes from it but the black market that they make. Or a hunter could come in and kill 1 and it's worth the same amount of money, and the conservation goes back into hundreds of elephants and hundreds of acres to protect these animals. It is so crazy. And I was really like brought back to like a level ground where I thought I knew conservation. And then once I was there, I was really like, wow, they do it right. There's some places that do it wrong, but I mean, like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of species that would not exist if there wasn't hunting there. Like the elephant thing. People think elephants are going extinct. Oh, they're very, very limited in certain places because they're not managed well. But places like Botswana, South Africa, I saw more elephants in one day than I've seen deer in a whole season. I mean, I saw hundreds. Every day I was seeing hundreds of them. They were like flies. It was insane. And a lot of people don't understand that. And the only way they will is if they actually experience it. No matter what I tell them, no matter what somebody else says in a video or podcast, they will never take your word for it. And I never did until I experienced it myself. And it completely changed my perspective on hunting, conservation. I think it's made me a better hunter and a better person just to understand everything about that place. It's pretty unbelievable.
I don't know if I could ever hunt an elephant. I think my wife would kill me because it's her favorite animal. So
yeah, I don't know if I could either, man. It would hurt me.
Yeah.
It hurts me to kill any animal, but if I know I can get something out of something, okay. But an elephant, I don't know. They're just like, they're so intelligent, and I don't know if I could do it.
Like a walking dinosaur, basically.
Yeah, that too. It's a mammoth with less fur.
Yeah.
It's this prehistoric giant, and they're just so like, I don't know. I don't know if I could. The only way I could is if like I was hired to go kill like a rogue bull or something. In that sense, I would, because I know the benefits of it. It's going to protect the other elephants in the herd and all these people in these villages, and the meat would go donated to them. So there's so much that would be benefited into it. And that's generally what a lot of these elephants are killed for. It's not just for sport. Like they're not all for, this big budget of money. Usually it's like rogue bulls who need to be killed to protect the herd and other people and villages. And there's a lot of benefits of it, but I don't think that's marketed well enough. I don't think it's marketed enough at all, let alone I don't think it's spoke about. So that's kind of one of my things there. Every time I go to Africa, it's like conservation promotion and speaking about it's up here. Cool hunting footage is like down here. Like that's just like a base level. Like if we get some cool footage, cool. But every time I go there, I'm like trying to promote how beneficial it is actually, and to understand that. And that's like my main goal, because I want to be able to keep doing it. And I hope that we can keep doing that in the US with our hunting too. And there's part of me that's worried our hunting is going in the wrong direction eventually as well. And we might start losing species and abilities to hunt certain animals. And it's concerning. So I think everybody needs to hunt Africa just to learn, not even just for the experience, just to get the knowledge from what's going to happen there.
Knowledge is power, basically.
Yep. It's going to change your life as a hunter. Even if you go there once and you never do it again, it's going to change how you hunt in the States even, and like who you are as a hunter. It will change you. And some people go into it with the wrong mindset, and maybe it won't. But if you go in expecting to learn and experience, it will change you. I went in like a sponge. I was asking every question and trying to like, hey, what's that print? What's that print? What's that sound? What's that tree? What are these bugs? Like I was trying to learn everything, because everything came back to hunting. Like every little detail of learning this plant and bug gave me knowledge and experience to how to hunt certain species. So there's a lot into it. I mean, same with anything, but it was a totally new world for me.
Well, Jesse, you got me speechless after that, man. So I'm definitely going out to Africa, and I just want to say thank you, Jesse, for coming on the show, sharing your experiences. I basically just sat back and just listened, man. So I just want to say thank you for everything that you're doing. For people that want to get in contact with you and help get in touch with your company to help promote their brand or anything like that, how can they do that? Well,
our website is grizz.media, not .com, .media. Super simple. You can find us on social media, Grizz_media. You can find all of our hunting extraordinary videos, photos, all that kind of stuff at Grizz Hunt on all social media, TikTok, YouTube, everything. And then you can just personally find me and my everyday shenanigans and all the cool stuff that I'm trying to do at the Grizzman on Instagram. And that's basically it. It's not hard to find.
Well, Jesse, I just want to say
for everyone.
Right. Well, Jesse, I just want to say thank you again, man, for coming on the show and doing everything you're doing. I know that you're going to be helping us out. We've been trying to work with you and our stuff, and I just can't say thank you enough, man. It really means a lot to us that you come on the show. For sure.
I want to help you guys out, whether it's me and you do a hunt together soon and do some photos and video. And, you're also a Michigan guy, so can't go better with some local people. And to kind of pick your brain as well, you're a downstate hunter. I'm a north state hunter. And even though we're in the same state, it's completely different situations and scenarios. So, but you grew up like in the UP, like you were saying, so we have a lot in common there. I'm excited to work with you, man. I'm glad we met. I mean, we only met maybe a month ago when you invited me on, and now I've been checking out all your stuff, and it'd be cool to kind of just now build this relationship and see where we can do some stuff in the future. Be cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. I watch your stuff a lot, man. So
I appreciate it, man. I'm trying to get stuff out there. I'm so far behind. If you got a good editor for me, let me know.
I think I can find someone for you.
They're tough. Editing is like it's my kryptonite. I hate it. I can't sit still long enough to just do edits.
You just sit there like, oh, all right.
I'd be like, oh, it's a nice day in March. I could shed hunt right now. Screw it. I run out in the woods and go shed hunt or shoot my bow. Like I can't sit still. So as much as I love the media and marketing side of stuff, the sitting at the desk is my kryptonite. I absolutely hate it. But when the project's completed, it's so satisfying to have like a good video or really good logo that a client's happy about. Like helping people in the industry is such a satisfying feeling. A lot of this industry is there's one side that's very helpful and they work together. And there's one side that's very cutthroat and it's always hate. I get so much hate on social media I get a lot for shed videos. People think I staged them and I carried them out in the woods and set them down. It's like, where do you think I found them in the first place? Like, it's crazy how much hate you get, but there's a lot of people trying to shoot you down. But if you can find ways to motivate people, which is like a huge goal of mine, just to motivate people and get them wanting to do more and doing more hunts and grinding a little bit more, whether like our Grizz Hunt slogan is train hard, hunt harder, like just put everything you have into it. And if you can motivate people to do it, it's such a big thing of mine. And then just helping people. like helping you, just whatever it is you need, photos, video, like it's such a good feeling. And that's, I think, why I like the media side of it. Media is cool. Photos are cool. Video is cool, but really helping brands grow and knowing that you help them get to a certain point and then they help you back, and building that relationship between, like, that's such a good feeling. And that's why, like, I still do this and I will do it for the rest of my life.
Well, thank you for starting your business, man. And it means a lot. And I can't wait to see what we can work together out, man. And I can't wait to see our relationship grow.
Yeah.
And see you as another Michigander. It just adds fuel to the fire. I'm like, man, he's in their state, man. It's awesome.
Let's do it, man. Let's get some stuff done.
I like it, really.
I'm excited.
Jesse, I hope you have a good rest of your night. I'll let you go. I know you're a busy guy, so I just
get back to work here. I got some logos to do. We'll be up a long time tonight.
All right.
I appreciate you inviting me, man.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Have a good rest of your night, man.
Yeah, you too. Take it easy, dude.
I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of that time I was just sitting there, just absorbing everything that I wanted to hear from that guy. He's that type of guy that you sit in a room and you just shut up and listen to what he has to say, because he has so much knowledge, and you could tell that through our conversation. And I just wanted to be a sponge, listen to that guy. And when I saw I was able to get him on the show, I was extremely excited to try and work with our brand, with his. And like I said, he's just an extraordinary guy. And to see him hunt out in Africa, and like I said, he's just a guy you sit in a room and you just shut up and listen. So I just want to say thank you, Jesse, for coming on the show. And this will conclude the week of Michigan. Sad to leave the state, but next week we're going into Minnesota. We're starting Monday through Wednesday. This week we were doing shows Tuesday through Thursday because we took Memorial Day off, which was Monday. But with that being said, make sure to go check us out on our website, whitetailadvantage.com, and use the code GP1010, GP10, and get 10% discount off Gilly Puck products. And make sure to go check out MAGNUS Broadheads as well. And with that being said, guys, thank you. Put your quarter in the slot machine. Help share the show. It means a lot to us, everyone out there that is doing that. And I can't say thank you enough. That being said, we're going to close out the night. Everyone have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next week for Minnesota week.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.